Good evening, everybody. I'm going to open the Village of Franklin regular council meeting of Monday, November 10th, 2025. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, before I call to order our roll call, I need to make an announcement and read something. So, I wanted just to announce that before we start today's meeting, that Trustee Michael Seltzer has officially, effective today, retired and resigned his seat as trustee. Everybody might know he had sold his house and moved and was renting here in the village, but he's now officially resigned. So before we go, Mike had asked, Mike couldn't be here today. He's hoping to be back in town in December, but he asked that I read something on his behalf that he presented to me. It has been my honor and a privilege to have served our community for nearly 30 years, first as a member and then as president of the Franklin Community Association, and since 2010 as a trustee of Village Council. I've served proudly, and I'm grateful to many who have placed their trust in me repeatedly, and I'm honored to have been a part of our local government and community. My decision to leave Franklin coincided with the challenging state of local affairs. I pledged to continue until a moment when I felt I had done all I could to help guide us through the process of transitioning from a vacated staffing position towards the place where we are now with a new administration in place. That mission was accomplished completely 2 weeks ago, and we are now fully restaffed, and the work of our Franklin community can be properly managed by a new team of professionals. Thus, as I originally intended to do, by year's end, I am effective November 10th, 2025, announcing my retirement and resignation from Village Council. I am hopeful of a successful transition. Given my commitment towards the process, this feels like the right time to complete my journey and move on from a great and very proud history of Franklin volunteerism. I wish all the best to our president and friend, David Goldberg, to the new team of people who have joined our village and deserve our support and respect. May the town the time forgot prosper. I will always be a cherished part of my life and a shining example of the great volunteerism that makes this community unique and inspiring. Michael Seltzer, Trustee 2010 to 2025, Village of Franklin. I just want to personally say to Mike that I want to thank you for the countless hours and tireless commitment you've shown the village the last 20 years. You have been an inspiration and great influence on my volunteerism. I will miss having you here on council. So with that transition, I guess I'll also, Evan will post on the website, but we now, today begins the 30-day period to replace a successor trustee. The way our charter operates, Mike's seat, once it's filled, and we hope to do so if not before, with a special meeting, at least by our next meeting, which will fall within those 30 days. The way our charter operates, Mike's seat, since it's in the first 2 years of the term, the appointed individual will just serve from our December meeting through November of 26, and then in November of 26, that seat will also go up for election. So technically, in November of 2026, we will have 4 council seats on the ballot. So that's how the process operates. So any individuals that are interested in putting their name in for consideration for the open trustee spot, please get an application from Evan and submit it to him within the next 3 weeks so that we have, well, I would say within the next 2 weeks in case we do a special meeting. So we'll set a 2-week deadline to get anyone who's interested in applying an opportunity to get an application in.
Sorry, so the seat goes up for election next November?
Correct.
They don't fill the seat for the remainder of the term of the vacancy?
No, the way the charter reads, if there is another village election outside of 40 days prior to it, it gets
Okay.
done at the next one.
Okay,
When I was appointed, it was in the second half, so I just finished out the term. But
Okay.
when it happens in the first 2 years, that's how the charter reads. But I'll have Peter obviously confirm that. So, having said that, Evan, roll call, please.
President David Goldberg,
Here.
Trustee Pam Hansen, Trustee Daniel Ferris,
Here.
Trustee Abigail Gates,
here,
Trustee Angelina Salaka,
present.
Trustee David Solly.
Here.
And I did hear from Pam. Pam is recovering for medical procedure, so she'll be here and back on her feet next month. Adoption of the agenda. Anybody have any comments on the agenda before we move forward?
Can we move public requests before consideration, in case anyone here wants to, or no? It doesn't matter, I'm just saying, I didn't know, there was no seats, and I always feel bad
Well,
for people standing.
We thought that many of the people would want to be here, that are here, because they wanted to hear the DNR
okay.
presentation.
Okay, I didn't
So
know, I just wanted to make sure
I
people
figured
are.
during public comment, people could then ask questions, and Kara will still hopefully be available. We
Okay,
might even push the flock down into
okay,
old business.
yeah,
And then, I do want to make one matter of clarification, because I know, Angelina, you had submitted something today that talked about deer sterilization. So we have on the agenda, we've used the term DNR presentation on deer cull. So I think I, at least myself, am learning as we go. I was under the impression that the word cull was more of a deer management term, but Kara was kind enough to confirm. The deer cull is the term that is used when the means of control is lethal. As you know, there's non-lethal ways of doing it, and I know there's people that advocate non-lethal as well lethal. So, for purposes moving forward, even though our surrounding communities have approved to do a deer cull in 2026, we're going to call it, until we've made a decision on what, if anything, we're going to do, we're going to call it just urban deer management, which addresses all means of controlling the population of deer. So I apologize if we've been using that term wrongly. There's definitely not ever been anything at this council, any type of decision to use a call as a means if we are involved at all. So I just wanted to clarify that. And I do know that as part of Kara Colton, who is here from the DNR to give us a presentation, her presentation does also address that. The DNR does not take any position on means of urban management. They're more of a sounding place, and then, of course, if it's something you want to do, they're the permitting agency. But the presentation that we're going to get today is to cover all aspects of urban deer management.
so will there be room for the non-lethal presentation from the Wildlife Michigan?
I mean, is there someone here from them?
Yep,
Oh, okay. Nice to know that.
sent 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Depends on how long the presentation is. We've got a pretty full agenda. Again, the presentation that is being done by the DNR is not based on either side of the means of being used. So if the presentation from the DNR is lacking into some areas on sterilization, maybe we can get a supplement, but I wasn't really prepared, and I didn't see it come to us to be on the agenda. So that's the only comment I have on the agenda. Does anybody else have any comments? We do have a consent agenda, so if there's anything on the consent agenda that you want to discuss, we would pull those out and move that into old business.
The outdoor lighting ordinance, was that the same one we did like 6 months ago?
Right, so if you could see, the outdoor ordinance was actually approved in 2024, and I don't know, for reasons unknown, it never was officially codified here in the offices, so the process of codification never took place. So our village attorney has and our village planner have felt that based on the fact it was a 2024 ordinance, it would not be appropriate to post it as if it was a 2024 ordinance. It's going to actually be a 2025 ordinance and not effective for 20 days after today. So we can't adopt it as of 2024. So the purpose of having on the consent agenda is to officially reapprove the second reading of the outdoor lighting ordinance and to have Evan officially post it. But the ordinance itself has not changed from what was approved.
So the last clerk just never like posted and codified, but it's the exact same wording.
Exact same wording. It was more the post decision of ours application that was missed.
And then we'll post it so that the residents know when it goes into effect. and stuff.
Right, Evan will go through the official process like we do when any ordinance has been adopted or amended, and it goes into effect 20 days after today. So even though we had hoped that it was going into effect a year ago, it's still not applicable until 20 days from today.
Yeah, I agree. I think the 2025 is just better record keeping.
You know, yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. It has to be done. And then, anything else? If anyone has questions, we could discuss it later when we get to administrator's report, if you've got questions for Rachel. So, having said all of that, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Solly, second by Gates. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have minutes from our October 13th, 2025 meeting. Anybody have any comments?
None from me.
Dan? Angelina? Oh, mine was good. I only had one. Page 4, Evan, treasurer's report, just a 2025 Ford Explorer. Otherwise, these are great. Again, you and Sophia are doing. Oh, I take that back. I have one other comment. On page 10, under F, so I think the term we're looking for, and it can be confusing. So I was asking whether the Historic District Commission had been consulted. So HDC is the Historic District Commission. HRC is Hubble, Roth, and Clark, who are our engineers. So that should, there we were talking about the Historic District Commission and should not come from the HDC, not HRC. I know that's confusing. That's all I had. So if you guys are okay, well, no, we don't have a motion. So those are my changes. If I can get a motion to approve the minutes with my suggested changes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Solly, second by Solaka. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Reports of village officers. Chief, how are you, sir?
We have a big crowd tonight, so I'll be brief. Are there any questions on the report that I submitted for the past month? Okay, thank you.
One question. One question. Does the head feel lighter with less hats on?
Yes,
All right.
yes, I'm enjoying it, and Rachel's doing a great job so far, so.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you. Other chief, Tony.
Hello, number 2 here. You also have a copy of our written report. The only thing I'd like to add is that with the change in weather and the change in lights here, please take note of fire safety in the fall, especially now that furnaces and fireplaces are starting up. We do tend to have one fire a year, and I'd rather it not happen this year. I'd rather you put me out of business. So with that said, if anyone has any questions with regard to fire safety, you can always call the fire department. I've also emailed Evan. You hit me up about every 2 weeks. for something for the newsletter for the village. So if you haven't signed up to have that delivered to you, please see the village offices, because we'll look forward to adding more and more content. Pending your questions, that'll conclude my report.
Any questions? Thanks,
Thank you.
Tony. Teresa?
Good
Hello.
evening. I also just wanted to ask if anybody had any questions on the report I submitted. Nothing different. I'm still keeping in with the format that we've been using for a while until everything falls in place, but be happy to answer any questions. And I think the next item on the agenda, and part of the treasurer's report, is the approval of the check runs. So I could just stay up here in case you have any questions on any of the checks.
Anyone got any questions from the bills list?
Nope.
Good. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well.
All right, so next is approval of the consent agenda. We had a slight modification to the fee schedule, the village council meeting dates, as well as the dates of the other boards. I'll let each of those boards, if they have a conflict on, for any holiday reason, to request an adjustment of their agenda accordingly. The approval is for the, an annual, what's the term, Rachel, for the annual disclosure? Is that part of our audit? The annual, What's it?
It's called the annual disclosure.
right, so we're changing the company that does that for us. That's what's on the agenda for that.
It's basically the same group of people actually doing the annual disclosure. He just moved his offices from
Yeah.
one company to the other.
So you moved, right, okay. And then the purchasing policy resolution, that's what Rachel and Teresa have put together, so if anyone has questions on that, we would pull that off. If not, that's the policy that administration wants to use for how our bills are processed, as well as the fact that we now have 2 office credit cards, one for the administrator and one for the chief of police. So there's, that policy also addresses how those credit cards can be used and for what can be used.
So for the purchasing policy, I had kind of 2 non-material changes of just consideration. So I don't know how we want to handle that.
So we'll pull it off, we'll pull that off of the consent agenda, and when we get to the end of new business, we'll put it in there.
Okay.
And I just had something, I think it doesn't need to be pulled out for it, but at the bottom of the calendar of meetings, can they put the YouTube site? That way,
Oh, yeah, sure.
like after the meetings are held at this location, but you can also access it remotely.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. So, with removing item F, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Solly, second by Gates. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, presentations. First, we have 2 personal presentations that I would like to read. The first is, it's on behalf of the village and us as the council, but it is also on behalf of the entire Village of Franklin Library and its board. Teresa Natsky, the library director of over 22 years, is just retired, and we, not quite? Almost?
4 weeks, not till,
Oh, 4 more weeks?
5 more weeks, not till before Christmas.
Oh, all right, well, great, we still get to have you with us. So, this is in proclamation of recognizing the long-term service of, and Teresa, do you want to come up here while you read it, so everybody can see who you are? You know, I do.
Where's Heather when you need her to take a picture?
I think got a camera.
You got one?
take a picture. Thank you.
So, recognizing the long-term service of Teresa Natsky, Director, Franklin Public Library, upon her retirement. Whereas, the Village of Franklin wishes to honor those individuals whose dedication and service have made a lasting impact on our community. And whereas Teresa has faithfully served the Franklin Public Library and the residents of our village for over 22 years, demonstrating exceptional professionalism, vision, and an enduring commitment to literacy, learning, and public service. And whereas throughout her distinguished tenure, Teresa has worked tirelessly to expand library programs, modernize services, foster a love of reading among residents of all ages, and create a welcoming environment that has enriched the culture and educational life of all of Franklin. And whereas her leadership and compassion have strengthened the library as a cornerstone of our community, supporting education, civic engagement, and lifelong learning. And whereas upon her retirement, Teresa leaves behind a legacy of service, innovation, and community spirit that will continue to benefit the residents of the Village of Franklin for years to come. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Franklin hereby recognizes and honors Teresa Natsky for her 22 years of dedicated service to the Franklin Public Library and to the citizens of our village. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution, an expression of civic appreciation, be presented to Teresa Natsky on behalf of the undersigned. And each of the council will sign, and we will get this signed and presented to you. Thank you again. The library will miss seeing you there, and I'm sure that your replacement will have some
gonna
big
take the
shoes to
picture.
fill.
Should we have her hold it?
Florence will appreciate
You
it.
wanna-
Rick, do you want to take one with the whole thing?
Right, right.
Cheese.
Angelina's gonna take a picture.
I got one.
Oh,
I'll send it to Florence. and
yes, you
put it-
better send it to Florence. Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Teresa.
been a privilege.
Thank you
Thank you so much,
It's been our
Teresa. Enjoy your real retirement.
Thank you. Few more weeks. And somebody can have my seat.
Okay, we have one more, and this is in proclamation. This is recognizing Lance Vanek for his services as the treasurer of the village. Hello, sir. Thank you. Nice to see you just here as a regular resident for the first time in a while. Whereas Lance Vanek was appointed as the Village of Franklin treasurer in August 2012 by Village President Jim Kokensparger, which role he served with support by trustees in conjunction with his professional career. And whereas Lance has been a resident in the village since 1997 with his wife Sue and 3 children, in which he has found Franklin to be a small town with a historic feel that he cherishes. And whereas he has served as president of a local money management firm since 1996, in addition to traveling worldwide supporting his daughter as a competitive skater with the International Skating Union. And whereas Lance has been active with village budget negotiations, attending meetings, and working on approaches to actively monitor village expenses, as well as plan for the future. And whereas he has advocated for the village in earning optimal interest rates on short-term cash deposits by setting up arrangements with local brokerage. And whereas Lance is committed to making sure the pension program for the Franklin Bingham Farms Police and Fire Departments were in order, reviewing and recommending means to reduce liability, including obtaining grants and advising trustees on prioritizing the pension program. And whereas Lance has worked extensively with the Streetscape project to guide the complicated funding process over a 3-year project, and whereas Lance regularly attended council meetings and was always available for consultation on pertinent issues each month and was a regular member of the Finance Committee. Now there be it resolved that Village Council of the Village of Franklin hereby recognizes and honors Lance Vanek for his 13 years of service to the Village of Franklin and its citizens. Be it resolved that a copy of this resolution, an expression of civic appreciation, be presented to Lance Vanek on behalf of the undersigned.
Thank you.
Well, Lance, again, we've thanked you a couple times already, but, we wouldn't be where we're at right now without you, and
Thank you.
we hope that as long as you're available, that we can still pick
Absolutely.
your brain when needed.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Oh, man, it's just because I got another angle. He looks taller from this angle.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, next, Evan, if you've got it ready. So everyone, I would like to introduce Kara Colton. Kara is with the Department of Natural Resources. She is a wildlife biologist, and amongst other things, I'm sure they keep her busy at the DNR. Urban deer management is one of the areas that she has background in. And as we've been investigating the process and trying to catch up with our neighbors who have been asking us to determine whether or not we're interested in being involved, we've asked Kara to be here and give us some background on urban deer management. So
Yes,
the floor is yours.
thank you. So thank you for having me here tonight. I will take a little more time than other folks, but hopefully everyone's okay with that. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Kara Colton. I'm a wildlife biologist with Michigan Department of Natural Resources with our Wildlife Division. And tonight I just kind of want to give a brief overview on urban deer management in general, breaking that up into three different segments. So talking about biology of white-tailed deer, processes that communities can take towards management of white-tailed deer, and then options. And I think that's probably what most people are interested in. And so the options can vary depending on the goals of the community that are identified, and that can then be used to guide what management options would be best for a community. So we won't talk on one thing specifically, but kind of a myriad of all different things. You can tab it a little more, sorry. Made it difficult there. So a little bit about biology of white-tailed deer, specifically characteristics of urban deer in general. So typically we see higher survival rates of urban deer compared to their rural counterparts. This has to do a lot with life history. It's very different for if you walk outside your house here and see a white-tailed deer, typically it's probably going to stare right back at you, might even walk up to you if it's been fed by a neighbor, that kind of thing. If you're out on one of our state game areas in more of a rural setting, that deer is probably going to hightail it the other direction. So we see a lot of behavioral difference, even though they're still the same species, and that has a lot to do with the environment that they're living in. Like I've said, we see typically higher survival rates in urban deer, reported as high as 87%. We also see higher reproduction. This is increased in urban areas, and we've seen reported 1.8 fawns per adult doe. I'm sure a lot of you see deer around here that have fawns that are twins or triplets even, so it's a great place to have babies. There's no reproductive senescence either. So in urban settings, we've identified that deer essentially don't go into menopause, meaning that they're bred throughout their entire life. Another thing that we've documented, or I should say that research has documented, is that fawns of the year, so typically first-year fawns are not being bred. However, if they weigh enough going into that first winter, they can be bred a lot in urban settings where you typically wouldn't see that in a rural setting. So you're seeing really high reproduction rates, and then that coupled with home range size, so these animals don't have to use a large amount of area to make a living. They can get by just living in one little, small section. They can get their caloric intake from just being in one little neighborhood sometimes. And this can lend itself to seeing higher deer densities in urban areas. So all of these things combined make it a great place for a deer to live in an urban setting. So I don't know if anyone has heard of the George Reserve. It's a research area owned by the University of Michigan. It's been known historically in the past to produce landmark studies on deer population management. It was a research facility put in place that's about 2 square miles of a fenced enclosure, and there was a deer study started in 1928 where scientists took 6 deer, 4 females and 2 males, put them in this enclosure. And then within 6 years, so fast forward to 1934, the deer population grew from that 6 deer to 180 deer. a lot of deer. And then 1 year after that, it grew from 180 to 222 deer. So we're seeing a lot of deer in a small period. The population was then wiped out. Fast forward a few years later, we're into 1975. Another deer study started. They put 10 deer in this enclosure. And by another 6 years later, 1989, the population grew from 10 deer to 212 deer. So nearly identical growth rates between those times. And it just shows how the potential white-tailed deer have to grow in a specific area when they have optimal conditions available to them. So another thing I want to talk about is changes on the landscape. I'm sure a lot of us are aware over time the landscape has changed. So this is an aerial imagery of some spot in Indiana. You see a lot of kind of rural farm fields. There's a river corridor going through there. Not a ton of development. This aerial image is from 1999. Deer have the ability to adapt to changing landscapes. So this is now that, this was in 2008. So fast forward now to 2008, you can see that the landscape changed drastically from what it was. You're seeing housing developments gone up. You're seeing golf courses. There's still that river corridor, but not really that rural setting anymore. I would say from the viewpoint of a deer, this is probably an improvement. So while deer love corn and soybeans fields, and they can make a living on it, that typically comes with traditional management for deer, which would be hunting. And a lot of these types of areas, hunting is not going to be a management tool, so this kind of acts as a refugia for deer, and they can make a living off of people's hostas and clover and other plant species and all those types of yummy plants that everyone puts in their yards. And then they are also not being hunted. So this probably, like I said, from a deer standpoint, might be a favorable landscape. So there's two types of carrying capacities that I want to talk about. I don't know how familiar anyone is with the word carrying capacity. But the first one I want to talk about is the biological carrying capacity. So this is basically how many deer that the habitat can support. This is when urban deer management becomes very polarizing. It's a very contentious topic. There's lots of different viewpoints. I would say that we typically don't want to manage deer to the biological carrying capacity. Animals are living, but I would say they're not thriving. We typically see like declining body condition, reproductive success would decline. There could be potentially higher fawn mortality, social stresses, sickness that could potentially come around when populations are at their biological carrying capacity. The second carrying capacity that I want to talk about is the social carrying capacity. You might have heard it called social carrying capacity or cultural carrying capacity, but this is the number of deer socially that people will tolerate in an area before they're considered a nuisance. So this graphic here was pulled from a MSU professor that he used. I think he's in the Human Dimensions Department at the wildlife group there. But basically, what I want to get out of this is that no one size fits all. There are people, I'm sure in this room, that think there are way too many deer. There are also probably people in this room that think there aren't enough deer. So we have different social carrying capacities, or on this graphic, they're referred to as acceptance capacities. And what this is to demonstrate, this curve over time is essentially the growth rate of a deer population. I would say that people typically get fed up with the number of deer before we reach that biological carrying capacity that I discussed. That's just how efficient white-tailed deer are living in an urban area. And it would reach this at some point with no management, and you will see that population decline. And so we need to make sure that communities are focusing on the impacts that animals are having and not necessarily the number of animals themselves. So this green bar down here, let's say this represents people in the community. They like the number of deer the way they are right now. They're happy with the way things are, everything's good. But that population starts to grow, you see the white line go up, and you move into the blue acceptance capacity. Those people in the blue are so happy there are more deer on the landscape. They thought when it was in the green, we didn't have enough deer. There weren't enough. I wasn't seeing anything. I'd love to see more of them. So we get, once again, differing viewpoints throughout a small area. Like I said, social carrying capacity could vary for everyone in this room. Perfect. So why engage in deer management? Typically, when communities come to us about deer management, they come to the table with some things already in mind. There are concerns about disease. So tick-borne diseases are a concern. We can get into that later, but I understand that as a concern. We see habituation is a concern some communities talk about. So the picture of the gentleman taking the photo of the deer is pretty close. That animal is clearly accustomed to being around humans and doesn't have a fear. Landscape damage is something that we hear a lot of. People have to put netting over their pretty flowers. Their hostas can't grow. They can't keep a garden because the deer eat everything. They're eating the bird feeder. Another thing we hear is folks will look at their parks, their natural landscapes, and the picture in the center here, the deer in the understory of this forest, you can see that there's basically nothing growing underneath that, and that's probably because the deer have eaten the majority of saplings, regeneration. So the understory, there's not a lot of nutrition available to deer. And lastly, one of the big things we hear about is deer vehicle collisions. So these are all reasons that people hear over time that are problems, potentially negative impacts from the deer population in their community when they come to us that we hear about. So the next thing we want to get into is the process of community-based deer management. This is adapted from a presentation from Emily Pomerantz. She's a professor at MSU now. She used to be part of Michigan DNR's Human Research Department, but she's now with MSU, still doing human dimensions work. So you are thinking of community-based deer management and don't know where to begin. This graphic will hopefully bring it all together. So the big thing we want folks to think about is, like I said, there's a lot of different human values. It can lead to a lot of different interpretations of desirable outcomes and acceptable means for achieving them. So the big thing we want communities to kind of engage in when they start this process is to think about these 4 phases. So the first phase is identifying the problem. This is when potentially community leaders like yourself or someone else asks to set up like a task force group to inform a deer management committee, that type of thing, to better understand the impacts that are occurring throughout the community. The second phase would be decision making. So this is when the deer program would develop goals and objectives, that those are determined, and then the actions that would need to be taken to address those and considered to address the objectives and the goal of the plan. Phase 3 would be implementation. So when the community develops their management plan, it's carrying out the action of the program. And then the last phase is evaluation and adaptation. So this is really important for communities to evaluate their deer management goals and objectives, making changes if there needs to be changes that happen, and also making sure that you're meeting your objectives and working towards some sort of success in the end. So, do we have a problem? Most of the time, we get the call of, we have too many deer, how many should we have? I would push back on that. It's not necessarily about, I don't want people to focus on the number of deer that should be there. Like I've mentioned before, we've seen a lot about different social carrying capacities of folks. So we want communities to make sure that they're focusing on measuring the impacts that the deer are having, not the number of deer themselves. Once we identify those impacts, which most likely they're probably negative impacts, that can guide the problem. So if there's a tolerance with what's going on, there is no problem. And that depends on who you talk to, I'm sure. Once all of this has been determined, so like when you're looking at the problem, what is the problem, where is it occurring, who is it occurring to, when is it occurring, what's the severity, and then making sure that you're gathering data that you need to support that impact that you're having. So this is seen typically reaching out to residents, asking a questionnaire, their thoughts on the deer population, tracking if there's been tick-borne illnesses, tracking deer vehicle collisions. I'm sure that's probably being tracked already. Potentially the number of complaints coming into the city by residents, whether it's just there's too many deer, landscape damage complaints, all of that, or even potentially monitoring browse that's occurring in your national parks and landscapes. But all of this then can be used to address how you would move towards making your management plan. So I want to kind of give an example as far as when we want communities to develop goals and outcomes. We want to make sure that it's measurable and being as specific as possible. So for example, this is hypothetical situation. If you all said we've seen an increase in deer vehicle collisions by 50% in the last 10 years, our goal is we want to see a reduction in deer vehicle collisions. Perfect. You want to see those reduced. We want that refined more when it comes to the objective. How are you going to do that and make it measurable? So that refined objective could be, we want to reduce deer vehicle collisions by 30% over 3 years. It's a measurable outcome that you can monitor the efficacy of whatever program is implemented. And then you can make those align with your management goals and objectives. We're here to provide flexibility as a management response, but we do want to make sure you consider all the different options out there, and that's to protect us, and that's to protect you for your actions. And we want to make sure that each idea is thoroughly vetted. No, you're fine. So now the fun stuff. Management options. So there are pros and cons with all of these. If it was a one shoe fits all, one size fits everything, I wouldn't be here right now. If it was quick, cost efficient, everyone liked it, that would be what everyone's doing. That's not where we're at. So, different management options. We're just going to touch on all of these. Like I said, there are pros and cons to all of them. Management option is no action or response. A pro, maybe it's a compromise. Maybe people need to increase their tolerance. It's also inexpensive. Cons with that, some would say you're not doing anything. It's considered inaction. The other thing is that if there are a lot of deer on the habitat or on the landscape here within the urban community, and you're already seeing negative impacts, those are going to continue to degrade. The habitat and those conflicts are going to continue to be there. This picture was chosen because it shows what we call a browse line. So basically it's how far a deer can stand on its back legs and eat everything. So you can see the deer have eaten everything they can from the bottom of those trees essentially down. So like I said, if you already have too many deer there and you're seeing those negative impacts, those would continue to be there with no action. Another option would be hunting. So the pros of this is it's typically inexpensive to communities. Most hunters will pay to participate in a hunting program. It can provide economic stimulus to the local community, and it is typically supported by a lot of individuals because they see the deer being used for meat most of the time. Cons of this is that some types of hunting programs that have been implemented in the past may not be appealing to many, depending on what those hunters are targeting. So there have been programs that have been implemented where hunters come in and they're shooting what we would call trophy deer, so those big bucks, and they're not targeting females, which is typically what we suggest folks to target because they are the ones reproducing. That could be a con to a hunting program. The other would be local concerns, just having folks hunting within a community. And then,
Real quick question
yep,
on the
go.
hunting.
No,
So hunting, at least from where I'm from, back when I did it, was based off of licensing through the state. So how is that controlled through local government?
yep. So DNR would work with you on that as far as there are communities right now in Michigan that have like archery hunting programs in place. So they still require like a license through Michigan DNR. Whether the city decided to also require something, that would be something that they could decide if they wanted to implement themselves. It would be up to the community to decide how that program went about. Some communities that have implemented, archery-only hunts, that type of thing, are very regulated, very restricted. They require like background checks, proficiency, accuracy testing done, that type of thing. But it still would require the license and would be done during typical hunting season through DNR's regulations. But the community would have the availability to tailor
Additional
the
requirements.
program. Yep. Another con is potentially access issues. So a lot of private land ownership. If folks aren't willing to participate, it might restrict where folks would be able to target deer for removal. as well as depending on what type of hunting was implemented. If a deer was removed, let's say via archery, sometimes they don't necessarily expire right on site. It could run off and then expire. If it was on a different landowner's property and they didn't have access to get the deer, that could cause problems as well.
One of the things we talked about in past meetings was there had to be enough space allocation in order to make hunting an option. And I believe there's only one parcel of land in Franklin that could facilitate that, which would be like our downtown area. Is that the
So-
case in archery specific hunting as well? or-
So that would be up to the city to decide if there was a parcel requirement, a size requirement. You could collectively pool people together, properties, or if there wanted to be an acreage, say, allotment, I guess. But that would be up to the city to decide if that was something that they wanted to implement.
But that's a city level determination, not a state or
Correct.
county level.
Because it's legal in the state to just shoot a bow and arrow at a
So,
deer?
yes, so DNR typically manages wildlife populations through hunting, trapping regulations. Local ordinances typically prohibit that type of activity in urban areas. So I would assume that there's an ordinance in place that prohibits the discharge of a firearm, potentially archery equipment within the city. Probably. Correct. So people then can't use hunting as a management tool. So if hunting were to be considered an option, that would be something the city would have to address, would be the local ordinances in place. But we do have seasons in place, licenses available to folks. It's the local ordinances that prohibit people doing it as an activity. Good question. Another management option I'm sure people have heard of is sharpshooting. So this is where typically hired professionals are brought in to remove deer. Pros to this are seen to be that it reduces deer populations quickly. So these are very highly managed and are what I would consider to be very safe. There are set organizations or companies that do this type of work. A con is that it can be very expensive, and it also can be seen as controversial. I would say a lot of these options, whether lethal or non-lethal, are pretty controversial depending on who you're talking to. But that is another consideration that the city could look into, and I know that's been a discussion as well. Another management option would be trap, relocate, and/or remove. Pros are you're not firing a lethal projection, which I know a lot of people have concerns about a lethal projection being fired in a urban area. It allows for deer to be removed sometime in difficult areas. You can set up a trap in a very small piece of property to do kind of a targeted removal. Cons are that this can cause high stress to deer. It's also very expensive and very labor intensive and time consuming. And then this is also not an option in Michigan, so I'll put that out there. We will not be relocating deer. So if we were to relocate animals, you're taking that entire deer, all of its biological contents, and moving it elsewhere. It's extremely stressful to deer. And the survival rates for deer that have been moved in other studies is typically low. So there is concern with that. So looking at some non-lethal options, contraception or birth control is one that's been talked about a lot in the past. Another pro for this is that it doesn't fire a lethal projection as well. It prevents future fawns from being born into the population. Downsides are it is very expensive. It doesn't actually remove deer from your population. So it's reducing the growth rate. It's not reducing the population. And it's difficult, if not nearly impossible, to achieve results in free-ranging deer populations. So deer don't know borders. They move where they want to move. And so typically in open settings, this is not this is not seen as a successful, I guess, option most of the time in open habitats.
And this, to delineate, this is not physical sterilization. How is this administered?
We will get there. Next slide.
Can you speak louder, please? Your question.
Sure. I was asking whether, is this physical sterilization or is this administered like a medication?
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is a medication. So there are 2 drugs out there that are federally approved drugs in our country. One of them is called Gonacon. They are registered through the EPA. Gonacon is a hand injection drug. So meaning you have to trap the individual, you have to inject them with the drug. It also requires a booster, typically administered within 1 year. So that means you're catching the deer again, you're hand injecting it again, and typically most places you're marking the deer so you know who has and who hasn't received this drug. Although these are registered for use through the EPA as a pesticide, they have to be approved through MDARD, and that has not been done in the state of Michigan, so this is not an option. The way this drug works, just to kind of give a little bit of information of that, is it blocks the stimulus hormone. So basically it leaves the animal in a non-reproductive state. The second drug out there is called Zonistat. This is also can be hand injected, jab stick, or remote dart delivery. It also requires a booster at 2 weeks and then each year. It is also not registered for use in Michigan through MDARD. And so the interesting thing with this drug is that it prevents, basically the sperm cannot attach to the egg, so it prevents fertilization, but it leaves animals in a reproductive state. So if a deer is not bred, it's going to come back into reproductive state in 28 days, and it leaves deer in this state over and over and over. We're in rut right now. Deer get a little woo-woo or whatever when we're in rut, do crazy things. All the bucks are running around chasing. Places that have administered this under, I would assume, scientific studies, I've been told they've seen an increase in deer vehicle collisions because deer are running around. Bucks are trying to breed females because they're constantly coming into a reproductive state. Sterilization. Another pro for this one is that it doesn't fire a lethal projection. It once again also prevents fawns from being born permanently. So this is often referred to as, it can be done as a tubal ligation or an ovarectomy. Odds are this is also very expensive, labor intensive. You're typically darting deer, moving them to a predetermined location to do the surgery, then putting them back, reversing the drug. So it's major surgery. It doesn't remove deer. That once again may be a problem. So you're reducing the growth rate. You're not reducing the number of deer on the landscape. And it's often seen as difficult to achieve results with this management option. Ann Arbor did a sterilization program. Some of you may be aware of this. They contracted with White Buffalo Inc. As part of a research project where they looked at deer sterilization. They had 2 study areas, so a southern study area and a northern study area, and they noted over the 4 years of the study that there was a 47% decrease in the population in the southern study area and a 60% decrease in the northern study area. If you dig into the numbers a little bit more, they were doing sterilization and removing deer lethally. So across those study areas, they lethally removed 432 deer, and 78 does then were sterilized in this study.
So I have a question. If you sterilize deer and deer produce doe all their life, then aren't you reducing the population of the deer because those deer that are existing are no longer reproducing?
So you don't, like, initially where you're at.
Yeah,
You're
but,
not,
like, you're not killing the deer that are currently in existence, but you're preventing.
correct. So you're not reducing the population with where it's
As
at
it
right
stands
now.
the day you sterilize.
Correct.
but
You're reducing the growth rate over time.
in the population.
Yes.
So they can't have, like, so if a deer lives 15 years, say,
They would
those-
not be able to reproduce
for
them.
the last 13 years of their life, if you sterilize them at 2 years old, and if they're having twins or triplets per
Correct.
deer, that's potentially 3 times 13, 39 deer
Correct.
that you're preventing from being born.
Correct.
So you are reducing the population of deer.
No. So again,
Like
it
the
goes back
next
to
year.
what you were talking about, that the overall goal needs to be, what is the impact you're trying to achieve as the community?
Correct.
Right? Because what you're saying is, I get what you're saying. You're saying in 13 years, you will reduce the population.
And that's if you're sterilizing. We're looking at places where this has seen to work are what we would consider like a closed population. So they're not free ranging.
Which is why I'm guessing they did a combination of call plus sterilization.
Correct. So they did see a reduction, but the majority of the deer were lethally removed.
But like the very next year, you'd see a reduction.
Correct, but all those does that were not sterilized in theory could be bred and reproducing still. So a lot of places that they have seen positive results are closed populations, and you're sterilizing almost 100% of the deer out there.
How far are deer traveling over the course of their life?
It depends. That's a great question. So home ranges, I would say in an urban setting are going to be a lot smaller, but I can't say specifically what it is here. It depends on the resources available. It's going to be a smaller home range than it would be out in a rural setting, but I can't give you an exact number.
For this particular study, what was the cost to cull and sterilize?
I don't have those numbers. No. I'm sure it's available on their website. I bet that information. White Buffalo's got a pretty detailed website if you were to look it up. You can see a lot of the research that's available.
So culling just kills the deer, and then you have to cull again. And then you have to cull again, because the deer that are alive are still reproducing at twins or triplets. So
It
like
depends-
both of them.
It
are
depends
kind
on
of-
your management objectives. So once again, looking at the impacts, and that's where it isn't like a one and done type of thing. We want people to know this is like a long-term management, whatever you decide to do. It's not going to be, we did it once and we're good to go.
But you only have to sterilize a deer one time in their lifetime.
Correct. Yeah.
If I understand you right, with regard to sterilization, you were saying it slows the growth rate, but in a community like ours, it would not put it into a negative growth rate, correct? Because we probably wouldn't be able to sterilize every single deer.
Unless you got every doe out there and you had no deer coming and going.
Right, which wouldn't be realistic. So if I'm understanding you, like if we're going like on a growth chart and we're going at this rate, it would slow it over time, but we'd still be increasing. We wouldn't actually ever decrease the population. of deer.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, if you were to sterilize everything,
Real quick, from a logistical standpoint, you may or may not know it from the report, but again, big logistics person. So it seems to me it would make sense to perform the cull before the sterilization. Reduce, right? That way you're not culling potentially sterilized deer. Plus
Yeah.
you're reducing that total population that you have to sterilize.
and that would be something that the
Right.
city could look.
What did Ann Arbor
into.
do? Did they do it at the same time?
Yep. And I don't know all the details
Yeah.
with this study, yeah.
One more thing. If the cities around us are culling deer and deer don't know boundaries, will Franklin's deer population be managed? Because we're only 2 miles big by the culling of the nearby
I
neighbor.
wish I had a crystal ball, but I can't answer.
But like, if you're saying that deer don't stay within the boundaries. and they're-
Potentially, but potentially not. I
Well, if they
mean,
stay within the boundaries, then sterilization would be more effective. But if you're saying that they move beyond boundaries, then the minute they cross in Farmington Hills, they could get culled.
The point that was made is that they're going to adapt to survive. So if they determine that this 1.5 mile by 2 mile space does not require them to go any further, they're not gonna go further, right? Like,
they can
if-
make a living where they're at and what they're doing, regardless of what the size is, they're not gonna move.
Like year over year, you're probably seeing the same deer in your yard.
I'm sure they have the same daily movements, it's
Yeah.
the same group. You could probably say at 5 PM, those 6 deer are gonna come through my yard.
Right.
And then it's 8 deer, and then it's 10 deer, or whatever, but, yep, 12. But it's probably those same family groups that you're seeing. Yeah, they're gonna be very habituated to their movements, and that probably changes with the seasons
What is
as
the
well.
lifespan of a deer in an urban population?
Long-lived, I'd probably say 13 so years.
Aside from the carrying capacities that you'd mentioned, are there physical symptoms and signs of a deer that indicate that overpopulation has happened? Like wasting, we talked about wasting disease or, just.
So wasting disease wouldn't have to do with like a population number. So there are diseases are a concern for people. Tick-borne diseases, I'm sure you've heard of chronic wasting disease, EHD, these are all
But
diseases
like
that deer.
blue tongue typically
Yep.
manifests when there is overpopulation.
So like EHD is like a midge that's presented. So the midge, it's a biting midge that bites deer. And we saw a huge die-off this season. EHD was pretty rampant throughout the country. It's very localized, and so you can see localized die-offs of deer. And then as soon as it freezes outside, that midge dies, and it doesn't affect the deer anymore.
I guess I'm trying to get some idea of, we're determining what's our goal, and like, how are we determining whether overpopulation is a factor? Are there ways to gauge, like physically?
And I guess that's where I'd say I would focus more on impacts. Don't try to get tied to a number, because you don't have a number, unless maybe you do if you're doing surveys, but it's really hard to do surveys.
To me, in general, it's like before even we state there's like a management problem, I feel like we have to identify whether there is a deer issue.
Correct.
Because to me, it's like, oh, Franklin has a tree issue because, you know, they fall on homes and they take our electricity out, but we all love the trees, we're not gonna cut down all the trees, because it's like the benefit we get with the burden. Like, to me, when I talk to people about deer, they're like, yeah, they eat my plants, but I love seeing them in the morning, they're majestic, and I would not wanna kill them. Like, so it's, is there a inconvenience? Yes. Does that mean you want to kill them? Like, that's a far stretch. And same thing with trees. Like, you have to bag your leaves, you have to, you know, landscape every few months, but we enjoy seeing the changing of the leaves, and we love having tree-lined streets. So we take on the loss of electricity, we take on the fallen limbs, we take on all the extra yard work, because that's how we want to live. And so, like, I think that is like something that we haven't put out to our residents. Like, do you enjoy seeing the deer?
But
Maybe
Trustee
yes or maybe
Slaka,
no.
in fairness, she's not advocating one way or the other.
Yeah, no,
That's up for
I'm-
us from a policy
Exactly.
standpoint
Well,
to
that's
define.
to Trustee Gates' point. It's like, what are our goals?
Yeah, so I think, like I said at the beginning, defining, is there a problem? And if there is a problem, what is the problem, the severity, and looking at the impacts that the deer are having, whether that's through a community survey, looking at deer vehicle collisions, complaints made to the village, that type of thing. Those are all things that could be looked at. But yeah, that's a very good point. Can we move on? Another.
Yeah, please.
Another option. I agree with the laughs. Reintroducing predators. Hit that space button. Pros, I guess, an opportunity to restore historical species to an area where they once were. I think.
It's mountain lions.
We do love historical preservation.
So, cons are, we would say it's probably very socially unacceptable. If we think we have a deer problem, we don't want to get mountain lion and wolf problem calls. So I will say right off the bat, this is not an option, but I did want to mention it. And then lastly, another non-lethal option would be fencing and repellents. I'm sure a lot of folks are already actively participating in this. Pros, you can exclude deer from problem areas. It is relatively inexpensive. Cons are it requires a lot of maintenance, and there's no guarantees that it's going to keep the deer from eating your plants. And it does often not solve the community-wide problem. So typically these are band-aids for specific individuals, trying to keep them out of a garden with fencing, that type of thing, putting netting over your pretty flowers. All right, so to wrap it up here, Venn diagram here. So we have cost, efficacy, speed, and controversy. There is no one size fits all. There is no magic solution. If, like I said, there was, we would all be doing it and I wouldn't be here right now. But there are 4 major components that communities should look at when they're deciding if they want to move forward with management options that will best suit their area. And there's trade-offs to selecting one management option over another management option. These all play a part in whatever management strategy that is selected if the village just decides to move forward with a management option. But you're never going to be able to have all 4 at once. And so you might have to choose between having 2 or 3 of these components. And the city will have to make a decision. Like I said, you can't have them all. It just depends on where the community's values lie and how you guys want to go about solving a potential problem. And with that, we are done. If anyone has questions, I will hopefully be able to answer them.
All right, so, Kara, and I appreciate if you have another minute. Our residents in the crowd, just with a show of hands, how many people were here just to hear the presentation? Let me go the other way. How many people are here that actually have questions that they'd like to have asked? I think that's not too bad. So would you mind if a couple residents So we're gonna open up public requests and comments right now. Those of us that have questions or comments regarding the urban deer management, let's have them go first. If it's a statement to us, go to the back of the line. If it's a question that you specifically have for Kara, then we'd like those individuals to go first and try and keep your time to about 3 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, you have to come up.
So my name is Beth. I live on Carroll Avenue. I lived here for 16 years. I appreciate all of the scientific information, but what I'm hearing is a lot of how do we remove these deer? I work in medicine. We look at the root cause. So where my mind goes is, as you mentioned, deer move from population to population, or from geographic area to geographic area. We've seen so much degradation of forests and woods. Bloomfield Township took out acres by the Pickering Barn. There's a house on Charles Lane that was one house when I moved in 16 years ago. Now it's 4, and it took up the whole block, and it just keeps taking out woods. I'm sure there's urban sprawl that goes to Farmington that wants to do their call, Birmingham, all these surrounding communities, and the deer are gonna go where they have habitat, water, something to eat. In taking out all of this habitat for the deer, we've taken out habitat for the coyotes, which are natural predators. So I know everybody laughed at that. Certainly, we're not going to reintroduce mountain lions. However, I think we need to realize where is the root cause coming from that we are taking away their habitat, we're taking away their predators' habitat. So has the DNR done any kind of study or consideration for giving back the deer places to live or limiting human expansion? I mean, there are cities that limit where you can build, and they don't allow bigger than a certain population size in a geographical area. Portland, Oregon, or outside Portland, or the suburban areas of Portland has done it because they don't want to take away their habitat and their wildlife, because we do, I mean, I love seeing the deer. Yes, they eat mahasas. Oh, well. The problems that I've seen it with are the past 16 years are through very traumatic situations that all have to do with fencing and fencing killing deer. So I was ecstatic when we outlawed the spikes on the top of our fences, because that was killing the deer in my eyes. And I would rather see them come and eat. I mean, they were eating my sedum this year, and they don't eat sedum. So I guess my viewpoint is I don't want to see any of the deer killed. Sorry, I set my timer. But my question is, has the DNR done any studies or consideration for limiting urban sprawl and where we build? And is there like countywide or multiple countywide like limitations on taking out the habitat? Like that's where it's coming from, is that we're taking away the woods.
I don't think we would have the ability to do that as an agency, since everything is local government ordinances. We don't own that land.
So I just think it's a bigger picture that maybe this spurs like a small community saying, we don't want to kill these deer, but we need to look at it like us as humans, like not just taking over everything. I bought an old home because I didn't want to build a new house in a new subdivision that took over land. So that was my main question, and I think that should be a consideration before we just say, let's kill the deer. Let's think about giving them back their land, or at least living with the risk of it versus benefit. What is our goal? I hope that our community's goal is not to kill a bunch of animals. I hope our community's goal is to say, maybe there's no change. Maybe we just kind of live with it. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Hello. I'm a doctor, I'm an anesthesiologist, and I also have been an OB/GYN before. So what I want to talk about is, one, is there a problem? You can see there's a lot of gardening club people here. If I give you anecdotal information, is that I moved here 30 years ago, and I seldom see a deer. Now I have a herd of deer chasing my dog, and I have giant hosta decimated to almost nothing. So my whole garden is totally decimated to an extent I've never seen. I see fawn dying in front of my doorstep because they are so thin. And they have this kind of bulbic disease with the tongue sticking out and drooling all over. So you can do a survey. That's number one. Is there a problem? Number two is what we're going to do. So there is sterilization, and I would like to know how much it costs for sterilization, because we need capture, handle, surgery, recovery, all that, versus how much it costs to do the sharpshooting. Cost is a big thing. You can be looking at 1,000 differential, so there goes your decision. Number three is about chemical injection in the form of contraception. So deer are mammals, just like us. They have the gonadotropins, they have the axis, they have the ovary, and yes, we have to do the dose. So if we do the dose, there's nothing that gives you lifelong contraception. So you got to mark the deer, capture the deer, multiple booster. With the free-ranging deer, you would be hard to think what is your objective and how long would it take to achieve your objective and the cost. But for us to worry about the humanity or the humane treatment of the deer, the problem is this kind of hormonal intervention, in fact, will give them a ovulation. So they just drag it out without ovulating, and they had all kinds of issues, not only with infection at the site of injection, they also will have feminization with kind of odd angle coming out, and you totally disrupt their social hierarchy, their biological hierarchy, and in fact, you're hurting them. You want to be really, contraception by chemical is infeasible and also inhumane. You want to decide whether sterilization or killing, really just two. And out of that, how much can we afford? So I want to know how much is it to cost?
I can't
Evan.
speak to the cost because I don't have that information. You would have to find a veterinarian or somebody that would do the surgery and get a cost estimate from them where it's happened. And then as far as like a sharpshooting, bull removal, there are specific entities that do those as well. That's not something that the DNR does. So that's information we can provide to the village if they're interested in obtaining that information from those.
But then will the DNR
All
remove
right,
the
excuse
deer?
me, so
We do not-
we're trying to keep time limits to 3 minutes, so.
Okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah, okay. Either a question or a statement, you don't get both.
I had two questions. The first question is to follow up on what you said, because my concern about the chemical sterilization would be that what is the risk of damaging the surrounding population? So if a coyote eats it, is that going to sterilize the coyote, for example? Is that going to get, if the animal who's been sterilized dies and is eaten by other animals? I mean, where are those chemicals going to go, and could it get into our groundwater? Because we have well water. So will those chemicals harm us?
I don't have that information.
Okay, but that's something I think is
Aren't the
really important.
chemicals
Yeah.
not approved?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, we
Yeah, it's
can't,
not even
that's not a
an
choice
option.
here.
That's, okay.
Just to
Neither
clarify,
are
neither
approved?
of them are approved for
Okay.
MDR, yeah.
Okay, good.
We just wanted to make sure we talked about it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second question has to do with, you only talked about sterilizing the females. And I was wondering if there's ever a consideration about the men. And I understand the men can come in, but the other, so whether it's sterilization or is there, and when you're talking about a call, do they focus more on the males because the males are the ones obviously impregnating the females?
Typically, in most communities, will focus on the females because they're the ones reproducing the offspring. Not to say that there aren't areas where they don't select it, it's whatever were to come in for removal.
So, President Goldberg, the presentation by the other residents addresses the female versus male sterilization and why they do females over males, and then also the costs and the price and the procedure of the sterilization. that the
Okay, we'll
DNR
give
can
these
do.
ladies an opportunity after everyone else is gone.
My name is Ann Reinhardt, and I'm concerned about the safety. In November of last year, on November 30th, I was, and you really should stay off the road from November to January when it's dark out, because that's when the males, their testosterone are really, going. And I was hit on Franklin Road and Maple, and it was a busy day, busy street. I mean, there were a lot of people head-on, and my bags did not even deploy. That's the other thing. The cars are not that safe. So fortunately, I was not hurt, but the car was totaled, so I had to end up getting a new car. So these are things that have to be addressed. And on my street, it was last week, there was a herd of deer, female, going down my street, and I'm talking 12. I counted them. And we can't have that. And I believe that sharpshooters, they kind of end things, and then if you really want more deer, it's probably pretty easy to get them. And a lot of people will give them to you for free. The other thing is that people say, well, they'll use the deer meat, the venison, Well, there's a problem with that, because many of the deer have already been shot, or the ones that have been shot, there's lead in the bullets. So we can't prevent lead in the meat. Then what do you do? So my whole thing is that, you do the thing now, and maybe in the future we have better things. We found on our property, we have now taken a lot of trees down, diseased trees. We've opened up the property. Our trees are just like thanking us. And when you have less trees, you have less deer. We noticed it. We don't have the 12 deer going down our street anymore. So these are just things that I would like people to think about, what we can do as residents to help. And we're not given anything. We're not, they're not saying, well, this is what we're going to do, or here's where you can go. This is the first time that I've heard a meeting that, talked about this. I've learned a lot. I have learned a lot. So my thing is that you just hire the sharpshooter, get it done, and I understand it is very, and I'm sorry. I never wanted to kill a Bambi, ever, I know you look at this and you think, but what else are you going to do? I certainly will never go through that again, where a deer hit me head on. And I was very careful, because you have to be careful between about 6 p.m. and 8 o'clock at night
All right.
during those 2 months, period.
Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt.
Okay.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for bringing Kara in, and anyone else that's from the wildlife community to really talk about this. And yes, I have been challenged by those does in my own backyard 3 times just in the last couple of months. It's kind of terrifying. But in talking to Brian Farmer, who is the Deputy Director at Farmington Hills, I would only urge that we consider his recommendation of forming a Franklin Village Deer Management Committee to work with the council. That committee can work toward hosting informational forums, gleaning information from our residents, and assisting in any future partnerships that we might consider with Southville and Farmington Hills and Farmington. And also encourage bringing in speakers, including someone from the food banks, because that's a very important point she made, but that's not the only advantage in having the food banks. People call the food banks to say, when is the venison ready? So that's just something that I would ask that you consider.
Thanks.
This is a super quick question aimed at you. Just from a data standpoint, your study in the beginning said you put 6 deer into 2-mile radius. 5 years later, you had 216 or something like that. Is that right? 180, and then they repeated the study in the early 70s, and it was also a man, right. Where was our deer population 5 years ago, and where does it stand at today? And if we don't do anything, where is it going to be in 5 years? Number one. Number two, I was driving on 14 Mile this morning. 2 deer missed my car by about 1 foot, going about 45 miles an hour. So it is a safety issue as far as I'm concerned, but I was just curious about the data.
So the state doesn't have like deer-wide estimates. We typically glean information from hunting. So harvest reporting that comes from hunting populations, we wouldn't have information specific to Farmington.
My next question is, if you took the 6 deer and went to 200 and you didn't do anything, in 5 years from there, where would it be in 5 years hence? Does it level out at some point after they've eaten everything, or?
So like I just discussed the biological carrying capacity, so deer are going to grow on like an exponential growth curve. So they're going to start and it's going to increase exponentially until they were to reach what we call a biological carrying capacity, which is going to be based on the resources available, what that could support. And then something will happen as far as, disease, declining reproductive success, survival rates will decline, and you'll see the population drop. I can't say a time reference with that.
Okay.
But they do grow at an exponential.
But we don't have any figures from 5 years ago to today. Okay, thanks.
I'm Steve Bancroft. I'm the administrator for the cemetery. I'd love to be able to tell you my point of view, but I don't think that would help. I'm here to tell you what we have seen at the cemetery, so that when you ask questions, what's happening in regard to deer population. I think 7 acres sitting up here just just south of us, I can tell you what's going on because we are seeing it. The population has exploded in the cemetery. I would say when I went on to be the administrator in 2016, we would see 2 or 3 deer. We'd maybe have a birth in the cemetery. Well, I remember one over a 5-year. We're now seeing 8 or 9 births in the cemetery right now. The deer are, there's about 40 deer in the cemetery at this point that spend the night there, and they're eating everything. They're eating stuff that we didn't think deer ate. So when people come in and put flowers in or plant stuff, it's gone. I'm getting phone calls, just personally, I'm getting lots of phone calls thinking that someone has either vandalized their graves, and as one guy said, well, deer don't read. She put up a sign, stop vandalizing this grave. And this guy put up, says, deer don't read. My experience just in watching what's going on and having to clean up, the afterbirth that is all over the cemetery, things like this, it's costly. No one's talked about, at this point, the actual cost of dealing with the numbers we're dealing with. If you're going to replant flowers, or in the case of the cemetery, I have to clean up, or if a deer gets impaled on the fence because they have wasting disease and can't get over a fence that is that tall, okay? Then we've got to get them removed. We've had, I won't go into it. I'm just telling you that the numbers have exponentially increased at the cemetery in a way that's costing us money.
Sir.
The communities that have already made a decision surrounding us, a number of them, right? They're going to call, is that correct?
Correct. Southfield and Farmington Hills, their board or councils chose to use a call as the means.
And I assume they investigated the many ridiculous things that are just obviously, there's no way that a community is going to be able to afford to do all the things, to make it nice for the deer to go away. I mean, that's the operations and, come on, we're going to have an army of vets in here and we're going to track down the deer and we're going to isolate them and it's going to be a wonderful thing and we're not going to kill any deer. Give me a break. And if you've not had a friend who was killed by a deer like I have, when somebody's going one way, the deer hits the car, the deer flies over into my friend's windshield, goes right through the windshield and kills him instantly. So until you have that, and you want to save a few deer, how about saving a few lives and property damage and doing the right thing? I mean, these other communities, I assume they're not crazy. They've investigated this, had presentations, and we're wasting a lot of time. We need to cull the deer. Otherwise, all those wonderful deer are going to end up here, and we're going to have an increased population. And even if they don't, and if not one of them comes, if we don't do anything, obviously, we're going to have, a serious deer problem. And we're visiting this topic because obviously we have a problem, and there's enough people. And hostas and everything else. I'm worried about, my car every night that I'm driving around town, and I've got to have the brights on. I've got to be going so slow. Deer are all over the place. Come on, it's a safety thing.
That's a good question. Do we have the numbers for the costs that the other cities approved for the call? How much it will cost them per deer or anything?
Do we even have the space in Franklin to do it? I thought we'd established we didn't have open enough space, a plot of land.
You do it at the cemetery.
The cemetery.
We have 7 acres.
My question is, can neighbors band together and form enough space in their backyards? Because we have big properties here.
That would be up to the village to decide
Right.
if they're gonna put
Just-
a size, there is no size limit from us, so.
Before,
and then that would
you
be
can't
working
hunt
with-
in Franklin per the charter, so this would have to be a charter amendment to begin with. Any call, we'd have to change the charter. No hunting in Franklin. It's on the first page of the charter.
There is lots of definitions of hunting.
There is a form that Farmington sent out, Farmington Hills sent out, allowing neighbors to collaborate.
Chapter
Yes,
2, section
about
2.7.
acreage To be able to do the culling on it.
Yes, sir.
Can I speak? Okay, my name is Rohit. I'm actually from Farmington Hills, so I can speak about what's been going on over there. The reality is the city has done nothing. They themselves admitted, I've talked to the council members myself. So when I say done nothing, meaning when anybody thought a vehicle crash or something is an issue, they didn't bother putting up signs. It's been done everywhere else. You can see there's these big signs that warn people exactly where they are, because it's always the deer are near a body of water and things like that. They have not sent education material about, telling people to be more aware, because we put up wildlife crossing signs. And we saw that people slow down when you see that. Otherwise, everybody is speeding. You can ask your police chief everywhere. Majority of the vehicle crashes are from distracted drivers, drunk drivers, people who speed. Nobody seems to be upset when you have a multi-car crash, everybody, and you have insurance that covers everything and you move on. Nobody dies from deer vehicle collisions. It's when you wake up in the morning and drive, that's the chance you take when you're around, I don't know, thousands and thousands of cars. You just accept it's an accident. One accident doesn't mean that everybody, I've been living with deer for 15 years, the families of them. I'm a motorcyclist. If anybody should be worried about hitting an animal, it's me. Not once, and I travel all across the city. I know this Farmington Hills very well. I go to Lansing a lot of time. I've been down I-75, 69. I don't have this problem that people are saying. This is an overreaction. Nobody has done any of the pre-steps that you do. That's educating residents about, even plants. That there is stuff out there in 2025 with the internet age. I'm surprised people don't know. There are sprays and all these things that are weather resistant. They stay all year round. You have to, let's find out which one you have first, because when I tell people about the brands.
Time out. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, I'll talk, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is you have to do the work before that. And even with the example brought up where it's concentrated in one area, people don't do apples to oranges comparisons. They think that when you're trying to manage the populations everywhere, no. If there's a certain area, one particular area, you can work on sterilization. And that's what actually the city now, believe it or not, after everything is over, now the discussions have started. Because they realized once they started getting all the complaints in from the people and the residents, they're realizing, hey, we actually didn't do anything. Because like somebody said here, this is the first time deer are being talked about. It's being, with all the wildlife we have around here, this should have been talked about long ago. This is a reaction. This is not being proactive. So you guys have to, because it's going to cause, I live there. There are neighbors that won't talk to other neighbors now because of this. It's going to divide the community pretty badly. So what I would suggest is you guys do all the work beforehand. Don't do the mistake they did. Because now the city is scrambling. Now they're bringing in a wildlife people in, to get both sides. Brian Farmer is a hunter. He's a citizen. He's employee of the Farmington Hills office.
All right, thank you.
So I just want to make sure you understand where the source is of this information.
Thank you.
Can I make another comment? I'm sorry, I don't feel worried. I have a tidbit of information. I know that people talk about the culling and there's, benefits of giving meat to a food bank. So about a month ago, I had to assist a neighbor with a deer that got caught on her fence and the police had to come and put it down. And our question was, can we give this meat to a food bank? I would hope and assume, if that's the direction that Franklin wants to go, and I would hope and assume Farmington Hills and Southfield did this, I don't know. But what I was told with animal control when he came to pick up the deer was that the state regulates, you have to have like a license to kill the deer and bring it in. It has to be tagged. It has to be cleared of disease before any food bank would take it and give it to the state mandated food pantries. So if that's not something that you're aware of and people go forward with killing all of these deer, and there's a huge populace thinking that this is going to be a good thing, speaking of food to food banks, and it doesn't happen, then that would be a severe, just a sadness loss of life for no reason, thinking that they're going to be able to give it away. So if that's something that Franklin goes towards, I would implore you to make sure that whatever food bank it gets donated to, that's set up ahead of time and organized ahead of time. Because otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of people signing up to come and hunt and give it away, and then it just goes to get disposed of. So I think that, I forget the gentleman said, this should be like a multi-year study to figure out what we want and where the population is going to go, and not making a decision like Farmington Hills did and just say, we're going to do this, and actually get input from residents. So the meat's not wasted, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, so, Kara, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Before we close and let me explain to everyone, today's purpose was the beginning of our informational study. I don't care what our neighbors did, because they did it their way, and whatever information they obtained, they did it on their time frame and their process. We'll do it our way. I know that there isn't even a availability to allow a call in our area until 2027. So we have plenty of time to research all of the issues, as well as hear from various residents on their pros and cons, including getting a survey out there in the near future. So this is the beginning of the process. This is not the decision-making process. So there is no urgency at this level. I know there's urgency at your level. We also sit and live where you live. We also are suffering the same way you are, but the decision on how, if at all, to address urban deer management is something that we are not making in the immediate future. So, the last bit of it today, we do have, I don't know if it's all three of you, but we have three ladies that if you guys can, I don't know if we have a time for a full presentation, but if you want to give us, if you've got a, well, how long is your presentation?
6 slides.
Sure. So if you want to give us a few minutes on the sterilization perspective, because again, we're not at the advocacy stage yet. Everybody wants to advocate their positions. We're at the information gathering stage. And once we've gathered information, then we'll listen to the advocacy piece. But until we're educated, everybody's advocacy does nothing for us.
Can I just give a quick background too?
Sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
back in June, the entire council was emailed by Advocates for Michigan Wildlife. And then you had asked me to get on some phone calls with them and Zoom and discuss, the issue before it came to council. So the last 3 months, we've been having meetings, discussions, different sessions about, options, grant opportunities, management avenues, methods, and then the last 2 meetings when a lot of public comment was about deer, I figured, okay, I think now is the right time to bring it to council, and these ladies curated a short but important presentation to give today. And everyone has their emails if you check back a few months ago.
I have a few comments about when he's going to give the presentation.
I hope I have enough time to present. I'm going to be very quick as I can. But first and foremost, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come in and present today. We are here on behalf of Advocates for Michigan Wildlife to share facts, research, and proven alternatives around managing urban deer populations, specifically in our suburban communities like Village of Franklin. What the public really thinks. Majority of residents value living alongside deer. The perception that deer are a widespread nuisance is largely driven by vocal few. According to the SEMCOG Public Opinion Survey from 2022, 73% of Southeast Michigan residents enjoy seeing the deer. In densely populated communities and as urban development continues to grow, loss of habitat increases deer visibility. A small minority frequently complain about deer shaping policy through pressure. Most complaints center on landscaping damage despite proven deterrents already available. Majority of residents oppose lethal deer control methods. The primary goals of the DNR is to increase the number of hunters in Michigan. In the last 6 years, they have dropped by approximately 200,000
sales and licenses. And hunting has reduced drastically in Michigan. So their primary goals are to increase the number of hunters, to increase hunter satisfaction, to increase access to hunting on private lands in urban areas, and to promote deer hunting as the primary management tool. DNR's deer management plan, it excludes non-lethal solutions from consideration and intentionally ignoring the method of sterilization which they already approved. Recommended only lethal measures even after they recommend only lethal measures even after they concluded that sterilization has been scientifically proven effective in reducing deer population for free-ranging deer. And I will show you moving forward about Clifton deer, which is a perfect example of free-ranging deer and how they decreased their population by 41%. And they reduce their deer populations at a localized scale based on scientific studies. The DNR is going around to different communities, and that is not, I think you did a beautiful job, but we've seen other presentations from other DNR representatives, and they fabricate a crisis. Even online, everywhere you look, there's a crisis that it's an overpopulation narrative. This is not about overpopulation. It's about using suburban areas to create more hunting opportunities, often under the guise of safety. They have a biased agenda, and that is to promote urban hunting. The DNR's policy is to approve culling permits in all communities without requiring not even a deer population counts or density, no data, no science. Even with a ban on hunting over bait, the DNR is spreading chronic wasting disease and allowing cities to cull deer over bait. The DNR admitted in its own publication that deer population is not the issue, as Kara had mentioned. It is focused on monitoring the impacts, such as deer vehicle crashes, rather than the number of deer, as stated in their publication and the link that I've provided for you. They use fear tactics messaging, not facts, but deer vehicle crashes are rare compared to total crashes, and none have been fatal. According to Traffic Safety Control, there has been no deaths, no fatalities in vehicle deer crashes. In addition, the DNR divides communities.
So, sorry, because I know I want to give you the platform to have a presentation, but to the extent that we're doing advocacy, it shouldn't exceed that the public's given. And so if you want to present on facts around sterilization and why that makes sense so that we can educate ourselves on sterilization, please focus on that.
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
about to, thank you for that, David, because I'm under the, again, we're not the advocacy stage, and we're certainly not in the position to be criticizing the Department of Natural Resources, who's only here to give us information. So to the extent you're going to provide us information on facts about sterilization as an alternative means of controlling deer population, please focus on that and not trying to advocate why you think it's better than another. We just are looking for factual information about sterilization. Kara gave us some information. To the extent you can supplement that, that's what we're looking for right now.
Okay, no problem. I'm glad that I provided you with the other information for your review, because I wanted to just give you some other data.
Well, you need to give us a source as well, otherwise it's just
Oh,
right,
absolutely.
so-
You don't have to respond.
No, you don't.
To us.
Okay. Can I just mention something about the Lyme disease, if that's okay with you, before I go into sterilization? Okay. And then there's other wonderful non-lethal options. But the deer do not cause Lyme disease. The CDC position as the source, they did mention that the deer are not infected with Lyme disease. What causes Lyme disease is when you've got climate change, warmer temperatures, there are more ticks. And ticks that are infected with the Lyme disease, the only way you can acquire Lyme disease is by being bit by, it's transmitted through a black-legged tick that has been infected. And the deer is just one of many hosts, and mostly small mammals that their primary hosts are. Just really quick, and I have backup information if you need a countless list of deer-resistant plants. There's tricho, who is extremely, it's EPA registered. It has been proven to work all year long, even in the winter. It's rain resistant and lasts long term. Not only tricho, but it's called another product, Deer Out. It's an extremely great product. There's also micro-exclosure fencing, and it's really important to have city-led education programs. So now that we're moving into, that's another great piece that I hope you guys have an opportunity to read, since I can't go over that. In any event, I'm going to be going to the Clifton Deer. Here's where it says success Clifton Deer. It's couple slides forward. There we go. So here we have the successful improved alternative of sterilization. It's the Clifton Deer science-based case study. Clifton's approach is a model of sustainability. The results are real. Costs decline over time. It's a successful long-term, and the community supports it. Clifton Deer is, again, it's a free, this scientific study was done on free-ranging deer for the last 10 years. From 2015 to present, they reduced by fertility control. They sterilized over 95% of their deer, adult females. It's a one-time treatment, and the annual decline was approximately 6.5%. The population was down by 41%, and the population continues to decline for two reasons. The immigration is kept low because it's their method is to sterilize and fertility control, but not removal. And because they're not removing the deer, there's no opportunity for them to rebound, which if you eliminate a deer from a certain area, they begin to, because of the access to food, they begin to repopulate with twins and triplets. So because they still exist and they're not removed, the sterilization is effective. And also, they're also in that area, and it reduces the immigration. So there is no immigration of other deer coming in to look for resources. Yes?
I see in one of your slides that you indicate some costs around the killing, processing, removal, and disposing of deer carcasses.
Yes.
And it was in 23, 24, in two geographies. For 100 deer in Ohio, just shy of $74,000, and 115 deer in Princeton, New Jersey for just under $80K.
Yes.
What is for a similar amount of deer, what is the cost projection for sterilization?
Okay. So the first year, because that's where the majority of the cost, and that's what happened with Clifton Deer, due to bringing in white buffalo, because white buffalo also culls, and then they also sterilize. They're the most sought-after company for sterilization. They're well-known all over the country, and I provided you with a list of all the communities they've been working on for sterilization.
But do you know the cost per
Yes.
deer to sterilize? And I understand there's an upfront cost here.
Yes,
The
it's-
longer term
the
cost
upfront
projections are far lower. What
Yes.
is the cost per deer on sterilization?
The sterilization is approximately $1,100 for the first year per deer. However, and you only provide the sterilization in DVC hotspots, okay? But after the initial year of sterilization, their subsequent years will be significantly reduced because the majority of the cost in the first year, they get trained by White Buffalo. They also trained other veterinarians. In fact, in Ann Arbor, the same veterinarian that was working with White Buffalo in Ann Arbor, they also learned how to sterilize. They were trained. They also have local volunteers that become darting specialists. So their investment is into skilled local volunteers. And then after that, they also begin to purchase their own capital equipment for surgical and darting equipment. They also offer veterinarians will volunteer their services. So because of the first year is the initial expense, anytime after that, it drops significantly because you have trained the volunteers in the first year. And as the time goes by, there's less deer, less cost. And with volunteer involvement, it reduces it dramatically and significantly. It's a one-time procedure. And that's the great thing about the sterilization.
And then, sorry, had a question that you probably are most educated on around benefits to doing sterilization of females compared to males.
They do offer it for males. So it's just that many communities, they choose to sterilize the females. And we never really, there are some communities in the States that do have done neutering of males. But I don't understand, at this point, I really can't give you a straight answer as to why.
So there's not like a strategic,
No, there isn't. And the difference is that when you go in out and spay a dog, a female dog, they remove the uterus and the ovaries. Whereas with the ovariectomy of sterilizing, they only remove the ovaries. So it's not as invasive as a typical spade program that they have for dogs and cats.
But they still are, there's an incision,
Yeah.
like an
Yeah.
abdominal wall.
I just wanted to add to what she said. I talked extensively with the White Buffalo in regard to this topic of the males versus the females, and essentially female deer, they tend to live more in the same area for their whole life.
Yeah.
So if you have a hot spot where there's a lot of, deer activity, it's gonna be mostly the same females, where you have the males traveling through the area, they come from other areas.
Right.
And also, just in general, because the females are the ones who are actually
Folks,
having.
can we
Guys, can we get a little quiet back there? Thank
That are
you.
actually having the babies, they can end up having them from any bucks that are traveling through, so they just do the females that are in the areas.
Okay.
Basically, unless you're in a closed environment, like, they did it, I think it's Staten Island, where it's like an actual island.
Yeah.
And they did both,
Okay.
but,
Okay.
just because of the cost involved.
Right.
In capturing each of the deer, it's just more effective to do the females, and that's why they do that. And then the surgery itself is actually done within an hour. They capture the deer. The surgery itself is only about a 20-minute procedure, and then they return the deer back to where it came from, give it an agent to wake it back up and watch it, as it comes back to make sure that it's, fully awake before it gets back out on the road. And so that's why they typically do just the females, because they just want to get the ones that are in those key pockets.
Okay.
Yeah, the DVC hotspots, and that's where the focus is. And by the way, deer have a range of about 1 square mile, female deer.
Okay.
Last question for me, is there a tipping point of sterilization where if you don't achieve enough sterilized does, let's say, the remainder of the population locally will start to pick up the slack and breed
Well-
exponentially? Is there a percentage of sterilization you'd have to achieve in order for it to be?
It's ideal to have approximately 95% of female deer in those certain hotspots where there's high DVCs. And then once you do that, since they don't travel beyond 1 square mile, there's no immigration because the deer exist, they're not being removed.
Just one more thing again to add on that too, sorry.
No, please,
But,
because I'm forgetting, I'm very.
Sorry, I forgot what I wanted to say.
Migration patterns.
Yeah, so because Franklin is such a small area, you're not gonna have, like a high volume of deer that would actually need to be, sterilized. It's, I think 2.6 square miles. So even if you were at the maximum number, like Farmington Hills said that they have up to 80 deer per square mile, most of their square miles are really, if you look at their actual deer map, it's like 1 deer in this square mile, there's like 5 in this square mile, and there's like literally 2 square miles out of the 36 square miles that actually have the
High
80 deer per
concentration.
square mile. Franklin's gonna fall somewhere in between there, either at the 80 or they might be at the 1, so. But if you assume they have 20 deer per square mile, or 40 deer per square mile, out of those, only half would actually need to be sterilized, so. And then the incremental cost difference between culling the deer, which would versus sterilizing the deer, just for the first year alone is about a $300 maybe difference per deer. So if you multiply that out by 10 or 20 deer, it's gonna be like a $2,000 or $4,000 difference the first year, but then going forward is where you see the cost benefits, because, the first year you might sterilize 20 deer, where the second year you might only have to sterilize 30.
Yeah, last question too, and this would require capture of deer potentially on residents' properties. So we'd have to, and like if you're trying to find these hot spots, you would have to get pretty wide participation from a
Well-
large amount of residents within Franklin, I would assume.
Well, actually, what happens is subdivisions, it's only 25 miles per hour. So you don't see DVCs in subdivisions. You see them on a main road. And the areas, they have 45, 55 miles an hour. That's where the highest DVCs are. And those are the hot pockets
Sorry,
that we're
what's that
talking
acronym?
about.
Oh,
The deer vehicle crashes.
No,
So
I
that's,
mean, like, to achieve, to capture a deer in a village like Franklin, you would have to go, and it's largely neighborhoods, so you'd have to get, how much participation would we have to get from our residents to achieve the level of sterilization needed for this to be effective? And would enough residents want to participate in that if capturing and sterilization of deer would happen on their property, is my question. And I'm not advocating one way or another. I think it's, for
Well-
me, it's a cost consideration. It is an effectiveness consideration. It is also, would we get enough residents' participation in order to make this a viable solution either way? Whether it's culling, we do nothing, sterilization, whatever it might be. I'm just asking these questions to understand, is this truly a viable situation if we need more participation than we could feasibly get from residents in Franklin? That's all I'm getting at. I have no.
well, a great deal of residents, based on the public survey that we've done, a number of people do enjoy seeing the deer. So
No, I
in-
understand, we understand that, and we probably need to move on. And this is great data, again, we're in this capturing of information stage so that we can decide what is a feasible solution. But to answer your question about getting information in front of residents in order to make this decision, those would be the questions I would want to know as a resident of Franklin on, is a cull a more viable solution? Is it a cost-effective solution? Can we even substantiate that line item in our budget? Would we get enough participation from residents to make this even a viable situation? And I would love to see that survey data. We're not gonna solve for this tonight, is the point. This is all wonderful information, but this is just, we are here to ask questions on behalf of our residents. There's no advocacy position tonight.
And I would imagine, sorry, I just have one last question. I'm guessing I already know the answer to it. Because it's a year-over-year activity, are they tagging ears for the deer? Tagging the ear of the deer?
tagging, yes, do tag the ears.
So that they know
Because they,
which ones have been sterilized?
yeah, they keep track of them. And the great thing about sterilization, it's a one-time procedure. Whereas if you look at examples with Metro Parks, they've been doing it for over 2.5 decades. And and they haven't been successful at reducing DVCs, and they haven't been reducing the population. And if you even look at, there was one other slide, if you don't mind, which is so important that I wanted to run by you. If you look at the percentage in perspective, only 5% of the car deer accidents involve deer, with no fatalities reported. That's the one where it says, do we have a problem in Oakland County? So in Oakland County, only 5%. Out of 35,951 crashes, only 2,024 were deer-related. And when you go down to, if you look at hunting in rural areas versus urban areas, if you look at statewide DVCs, it has increased over the last 5-year increments by 10%. And in rural counties, there are 83 counties in Michigan, 53 rural and 30 urban. In the 53 rural counties, their DVCs are 52% of the total crashes, whereas in urban counties, the 30 urban counties, only 13% of the DVCs, 13% of DVCs out of the total crashes. So I think this is really important to just understand that hunting and culling is not effective in reducing a population.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thanks.
I just had a couple things, I don't know if I can add them on, I was gonna go up for my 3 minutes, but I wanted to wait till she was done, so I didn't duplicate, but, I just wanted to mention that, in Franklin, in 2023, there was actually only 6 car vehicle collisions in the city, and that was actually down, that was lower than 6 out of the last 10 years, deer vehicle collisions for the city, the township, there's been no trend, because I analyzed all the data, there's been no increasing trend of deer vehicle collisions in Franklin. Also, I wanted to mention that, there is a project going on in Ohio in, February that some of the communities around here are sending representatives down to go see in person. If you guys are interested in sending anybody down to see like how the sterilization works, some of the processes, it's about a 2 to 3 hour drive south of here. And they're gonna actually be doing 3 communities down there where they had previously done one, but now they have 2 other cities joining the project where it's a sterilization project. So if you guys are interested in that, just let me know and I can get you in contact with the person in charge of doing that.
There's also veterinarians that are going down there to get trained, for
Yeah.
sterilizing,
Yeah.
even rehabbers.
And then the last thing I just wanted to say is, like, again, with the size of Franklin, the number of deer that would have to be sterilized would be very small. And, the company that does it, White Buffalo, they've done communities, for instance, like in Kika, South Carolina, where they've sterilized over 200 to 300 deer in 1 week. So it's not like it's difficult for them to find them or difficult for them to capture them. They could probably do it in 2 days in Franklin, you know, I mean, they could probably catch all the deer and do it. It's not, like, we don't have to know how to do it, we just write them a check, they come, they do it, they have experience, 25 years of doing this, so it's not like it would be difficult to implement or anything like that, so I just wanted to mention those in case you guys are interested.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah.
Of course.
Thank
All right, thank you. Okay. So, again, we're not anywhere near in the even discussion of making a decision. I think in the next month and maybe as we move towards the next meeting, we decide, because this is not going to be something that's going to get vetted out at the council level.
Correct.
We're going to have to create a subcommittee. We'll probably include some residents and maybe begin getting more information as well as getting some more interaction with the residents through some type of surveying to see what the desire is to even address this as well as spend any of our residents' money on this subject. So everybody, thank you very much. This is the beginning of a process, and we'll keep having additional discussions in the future. All right. We'll take a second, let everyone get out. But next on our agenda is our last presentation. I'm assuming, is this from you, Kurt?
More public comments?
It's gonna be, we have one presentation and then public comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So Evan sent a second agenda. I think that may be the discrepancy. Thank you. Have a good night.
So I'm here to talk a little about the flock cameras. The last time I spoke to you last month, you asked me my opinion of where I thought the 2 flock cameras should go, but we wanted to check with Flock so they would do some data analysis for us. And basically, they did come back and tell me that where we thought we wanted to put those cameras is exactly the right place to put them. The only thing that they said different than what I was thinking is they want to capture the vehicles coming into the village, not leaving the village. And their thought process made a lot of sense because criminals these days, a lot of time, are using stolen vehicles. And so we will know once they enter the village, we'll be notified that there's a stolen vehicle within our village limits instead of leaving the village limits. So it makes sense to me. If you have any questions or any concerns, let me know.
Sorry, why would you enter the village with a stolen vehicle?
To do a crime here and not their own
I see.
personal vehicle. They will bring a stolen license plate or a stolen
Sorry,
vehicle.
because if a vehicle was stolen, you wouldn't know it was stolen if it was leaving Franklin. Yeah.
That's me. My understanding, talking to Bill Dennett, was that we didn't need any special permitting. Both cameras will be on the easement, as long as the board is good with that.
They're solar, they don't need electric sources?
They're solar.
Okay, so it's just installing the pole and putting the apparatus?
Correct.
Have at it.
I had a resident mention to me, are there any privacy concerns about this sort of equipment? Does this create any opportunity for that level of exposure for residents.
So courts have continuously said that license plates are public, right? So we're just capturing license plates. There's no facial recognition. Even if there was that capability, at this point, I wouldn't recommend it to the council. So all of the data will be kept on the cloud, and only we will have access to that.
I'm surprised the privacy attorneys are not.
Well, no, I mean, like, actually, I completely agree, because from a legal perspective, anything that's in the public view is not considered within the right of privacy. The other thing is, like, I think from a, even if you take a step back from a public advocacy standpoint, I know, Chief, you and I have talked about that Europe relies very heavily on cameras in this type of activities to monitor crime, and yet they're significantly more stringent on privacy rights. So there's not really been a conflict either from a U.S. legal system or even from a public policy standpoint with the conflict between the two.
I meant process around data storage within the cloud and access.
Oh, yeah.
That's, yeah,
Uh,
yes, and.
So I guess to that point, I'll ask questions following up on exactly what you're saying, which is, when there's storage within the database, is it purely based off of the license plate, and then you have to access additional databases to tie that license plate to an individual? So essentially, you could avoid the exposure of PII, personally identifiable information, if somebody were to access that database by essentially segmenting out the two identifiers from each other. You may not know that, but
Okay, I don't know that. I know that the data is stored on an Amazon government secure, very secure cloud. I know that the license plates are continually run through the law enforcement information computer, which is a state-run computer system, which is also goes to the FBI database. So that's just continually happening.
So, do you provide any information to Flock? You have access to their database, they don't have access into the state database?
Correct.
Okay.
That's
That
correct.
was my understanding, that we're not maintaining, keeping data. We
It'll
have
be-
access to their data management system.
The data that the cameras capture will be kept for 30 days and then be purged from the cloud. At 30
From our,
Yes,
okay. And who's doing the purging? Is it automated?
Flock.
Okay.
yeah,
So they're managing it for
Yes.
us.
yes.
And as far as like privacy, same thing, where like when you drive on a public road, you're revealing yourself too.
I'm curious, is there a privacy issue that either anyone here on council or the general public is concerned about with this
Yeah, I had
apparatus?
someone ask me about this.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
and-
saw the
and Pam did
article
too.
in the paper and said, wow, this feels like an invasion of my privacy.
So I know,
Someone had mentioned
yeah,
that to me.
Ferndale right
Big
now is
Brother.
having this conversation. I think it's fine to have that conversation.
Yeah,
There's
completely agree.
Concerns. I'm comfortable with it, and as long as you're comfortable with it. I think if we realize down the road that this is not something that we want to continue to partake in, then we can look at that.
But the information that's being gathered, it's not it's information regarding someone's driver, their
Their license plate and their vehicle description is what it's capturing.
Correct.
Right, so unless that, one of those two factors triggers something that would cause an investigation, nobody's personal data would ever be
Well, I think it was facial
accessed.
recognition, it was, like, where is this information kept, who has access to it, and what
But
information is being captured.
none of this is going in, neither of these devices have the depth or distance capacity to reach someone's home, correct? Even someone's
They're pointed
personal
in the middle,
property.
basically, they're pointed in the middle of Franklin.
So again, if you're driving on a road in the public, you're open to the public. You don't have any privacy entitlement. Someone can take a picture of you anytime when you're.
We have multiple residents right here in Franklin where their personal cameras are pointed in their neighbor's yards, towards the neighbor's house. As long as they're not going into their bedroom or their bathroom, there's nothing that we can do.
And I respect the question, I'm not diminishing the question, but this is not anything where like it's going, you could see to someone's house. It would literally be, you drove past the camera, whether you're a resident of Franklin or not, it's gonna pick up that information.
Correct.
Okay, so, all right.
It wasn't, to be clear, it was not me asking the question.
No, I get that.
I don't mind the
was asking
question.
No, I understood that. I wanted to make sure none of us up here really were concerned that this is a privacy issue.
So for this location,
Have an Alexa.
it's going to be on like up off of the intersection rather than at the intersection?
Correct. Do you, Evan, you want to show where the other camera is on Evelyn Court? Yep. So they have to look at, the trees, how are they going to grow, to make sure they get enough solar power from the sun, things like that. So that's what they're kind of looking at.
And when will these be installed, like in the next 30 days?
There's so many cities that are buying so many of these cameras that we're probably looking at 3 to 4 months.
And these cameras are spin 360, correct?
Nope, they're just focused straight ahead.
One direction?
Taking continual pictures when the cars go by. And this system is not only in Michigan, it's all over the country. So
Does the contract start at installation? Is that when we start paying?
I already paid the invoice. So, I'm sorry, I already signed the contract. I'm not sure if the invoice made over to get paid yet. And we'll be able to access the existing cameras in the next several weeks.
So we start paying right away?
Yes.
even though- okay.
And that, again, was paid out of forfeiture.
So if a plate is registered in the system as stolen, and a Franklin, Michigan camera happens to capture a plate registered in another state, within the Flock network, like someone would be notified.
So Bloomfield Township Dispatch will be notified directly by Flock.
Okay.
It could be an Amber Alert.
Yeah.
It could be, a suspect wanted for a major crime. Those are the type of things that we're going to find when they're running the plate.
So that camera up there that you've got the picture of, and now you're saying that it only points in one direction. So if it's only pointing in one direction, and we only have license plates on the rear of our cars, because you don't have to have a license plate on the front, is it?
That's why he was talking about entry into the village rather than
Right.
leaving.
So obviously, there's potential you're going to get maybe the front of the car leaving the village, but we would really have to buy 2 more cameras to both directions, which I don't think we're ready to do at this point.
Will you let us know, like, how many times you use them and stuff?
Sure.
So one quick question though, I guess, again, if you don't know the question or the answer, that's totally fine. So back to kind of the privacy related question. How is there the correlation between this license plate belongs to not maybe stolen, because you can report stolen, but somebody who's dangerous?
So they'd have a warrant for their arrest that would be tied to that particular vehicle, but that's registered to them.
Got it. Okay.
But David's question, I think, was right on. You're only getting the front of the car. So
No, the back of the car.
The back of the car.
Yeah, it would be
They're coming
pointed
into
at the back
Franklin.
of.
They're coming into Franklin from Bloomfield. You're getting the front of the car.
We're getting the rear of the car. So
As they go
it's
past it.
capturing data of vehicles coming into, Franklin and 13 and Franklin and 14, coming into our
So
jurisdiction.
this one here, a car that's going southbound that just came into Franklin, it's gonna catch the back of its thing.
It's gonna
This-
catch the back of the car.
the li- Right, and the same, okay. And the whole reason we had to do this isn't as much because we're getting necessarily great benefit from the 2 cameras that we install. It's so that we have access to all the cameras, and that was where we got cut off from the system. So, for your guys' situation, car stolen out of your driveway, it leaves, if it goes up Franklin, one of our cameras will do it, if it goes out to Telegraph,
So I would say
being-
between
so-
West Bloomfield, Farmington Hills, Southfield, Beverly Hills, and Bloomfield Township, they have at least 250 cameras with those jurisdictions. So we're pretty well covered around us.
So that's what we were doing it more for again,
Yeah.
is they sort of played our hand to force us to spend this in order to get into the system.
Yeah, I'm also interested, though, again, understanding the value of entry, to not have it on 13 Mile is losing a lot of the potential benefit to you all. To say there is a stolen vehicle that has been within the proximity of where we're at, to the point of if somebody steals, not only are we catching everybody coming across 13 Mile, but we're also going to, if somebody steals a vehicle out of Franklin and then proceeds onto 13 Mile, it's a 50-50 chance, but at least, I just think that there might be more consideration around 13 Mile, because it's such a major thoroughfare, compared to 14 Mile, probably not gonna get that much traffic, compared to, the policy benefit.
But isn't the hope that because of our surrounding communities, if a car flees westbound on 13 Mile,
Fair.
unfortunately, there's not one at Inkster, but let's hope that there is at least one by Northwestern and 13 Mile Road. So before they're gonna get to the next major thoroughfare, it's gonna get picked up there. I don't see anything at 13 and Telegraph. So is,
There isn't one, because that's Bitcoin
it's our,
Farms in our
right, so
jurisdiction.
we Franklin are paying for these two, and they're gonna go in Franklin. Is Bingham Farms considering?
So I'm working with the HOAs over there to try to get them to purchase additional cameras. And I just talked to, Rachel and I just talked to the village president, Lisa, today about, our interest in additional flock cameras. So they haven't committed to that, but I think it's just a great tool.
That's a good question, because when our vehicle was stolen, we were told that the reason why our street was easily accessible is because you could get right under 13 Mile, head straight to Telegraph.
Gone.
And be gone, as opposed to
Yeah.
like 25-mile-an-hour road, and you have to stop and stop and stop, and it's easy in, easy out. And so like the streets, it seems like have the most break-ins are around the 13-mile
Are there
area.
any restrictions on it being on 13 Mile, like Oakland County Road
No,
Commission at all?
well, there would be additional restrictions that I have to get permission through Oakland County.
Yeah.
We'd have to make sure that the tree canopy was not gonna impede the solar panels, things like that. We certainly I can ask them, Flock, what they think about that. Would you wanna get the traffic going eastbound or westbound? And then you gotta remember, we have to be able to, it's gonna go up to dispatch, it's gonna be reported, there's a stolen vehicle going eastbound 13, and by the time we even get the message from dispatch, they're already gonna be in Bingham
Another
Farms or
jurisdiction, yeah.
farther.
Do you know where the Southfield cameras are?
I know where, well, I don't know where they all
Or
are.
the closest
But
one
I know
is
that there's one
Franklin?
at 12 and Telegraph, several.
Near the Meyer and the gas stations? Like near the Meyer and the gas stations?
Yeah, right at that intersection, and there's one, Bloomfield Township has at 14 and Telegraph.
Flock's requirement that quote-unquote, we join, is that done by police department or jurisdiction? Like community?
That's a great question.
Because theoretically, you're a police department that covers two communities, only one of the communities is buying in. That's sort of where I was getting at with Bingham Farms, which is, why aren't they buying their own two, so that the whole department gets four, and then we can get one at 13 and Telegraph, which is in their jurisdiction, and maybe one at 14 and Telegraph.
Just get one each, maybe don't.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at, is it by police department, is Flock's requirement, like, they came down on you trying to access the system, but do they realize that you represent two communities?
They do.
Okay, okay.
But we can ask Bingham Farms.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, if they're willing to do that, that would be great. I'm just curious if at some point Fox gonna go, hey, we didn't realize, you guys owe us two more cameras in order to have two communities getting the benefit of this.
And when you talk with Flock, the cost of relocation of a camera. So if we ultimately, after a year, look at the data and say, we didn't get that many, like we had X amount of break-ins and we had 0 hits, probably means go to a different fishing spot, right? So what is that cost gonna be to move them?
I'll find out.
All right, thank you.
Shouldn't be bad, because there's no electrical connection, right?
Just a mounting
Yeah,
a pole.
So that's just finding better.
Jerry Johnson could
Good
find-
solar areas, they'd have to do that whole calculation, but shouldn't be too costly, you would
Yeah.
hope.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, chief.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yep. All right, now we'll open public comments. Bashir, do you have something?
Good evening, everyone. It's been long. I was falling asleep out there. So, good evening. I want to start by thanking Trustee Sulaga for continuing to ask very good questions. Last meeting, she asked a very good question about Johnson Landscaping and why we pay him on average $22,941 a month. If I look at the budget and the established budget for 25-26, and if I go ahead and add all the line items, anything relevant to building maintenance, to winter maintenance, to landscaping, to taking care of this building, we total $169,000 and change. Yet, if we look at the $22,000, $941, or not 22,000, almost 23,000. We're almost paying him $275,000 a year. We're exceeding the allocation was allocated for him. Now, when I look at his contract expired in April. So he's operating on an expired contract. And if I look at the bidding and how the contract was established, he bid 25% less than the other two bidders, which is concerning, right? The other bidders were 1% of each other. So we need to look into here, see what's going on. And according to Chapter 6 in the charter, you know, you have to send out another bid and open it up for bid and get that reestablished. Also, when I look at the invoices, it's very poorly accounted. Like I see multiple attempts of invoicing for the same amounts over and over again, and constantly where the village here notes, it's like, okay, this is paid, this is paid, this is paid. Also, it's not clear. I look at the invoices, it's just not clear what's being invoiced for. The details are not clear, you know, just make sure we're not being nickel or dime there. And if you're interested in knowing why I started looking into Dawson Landscaping, in September we had an unfortunate incident where he showed up to my property and started doing some work in the village right away in the name of the city or in the name of the village first, until I verified that was not the case. Also, when I tried to explain to him why it was done that way, why the village made me do it and put sod in that area, he just dismissed everything, okay? And he went on to say that he knows better than I do because I'm not from here, whatever that's supposed to mean. Also, he started dropping names. My daughter is a lawyer. I'm friends with yourself, for example, or friends with Mr. Seltzer. He's not here. I cannot verify this, but this is not an acceptable behavior of a supplier or a contractor in the village. Okay, so I wanted to share that. I am requesting an audit, simply. That's audited, and if the contract expired, we get that resolved. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Right on time. All right? Okay, I've got paperwork here if you're interested, so thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Anybody else have public comment? All right. Next is old business. So, Peter and Rachel, we included in here the updated Metro Act application. At our last meeting, we voted to approve the application, subject to Peter getting comfortable that some of the questions that Pam had presented concerning location of the below-ground structures and the lids that would be installed, as well as whether they would be installing any permanent electrical transformers in the village. So I'm under the impression you've had communications with them and they've answered those questions?
I have. What they're going to be installing are underground conduits, and that's reflected on either in Exhibit A or B, and they confirm that they will not be installing any equipment, cabinets or boxes or transformers that are above surface. And I put that in the permit under 2.1.3 that they cannot do so. And if they wanted to, they'd have to come back to village council. And I spoke to the representative from Easy Fiber, and he was comfortable with that. He said Franklin is too small of a municipality to include one of those cabinet or above-ground cabinet or boxes.
But we'll still be able to access fiber optic service providers.
Correct. Yeah, and there's a map there.
So, yeah, which is the map that
Yeah.
is showing it? We had two maps. One, which is this redder one that's got a couple dots. I'm assuming that's the location of the below ground.
So the second map is what they included in their application, the first map that he had sent through email. They did confirm that it will be in all the right-of-ways, and it's for both residential and commercial. So the second map there, yeah, there.
So they're gonna blanket the village.
Correct.
So just to, again, clarify, outside of a couple very small pockets, this reflects everywhere where we will have fiber optic available?
Correct.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
small pockets would not be?
So you can see some of those roads, right? Well, I guess that's even a residential area. The light green reflects the extension of the road, so there may be homes that are.
Those are
located-
driveways, a lot of that.
Okay.
That's pretty much so.
Like a dead end.
Yeah, because that's where I
that's-
cut myself off, is I see like the village property, for instance, you can see there's no red there. However, there's no homes there. Same thing with, I think, the Romney Way up there, that's just gonna be the school.
I mean, that's the cemetery, that one area there.
Right, so I think it does cover most.
Yeah.
I mean, big success, because the fiber optic will improve services for our residents, so.
He used the word, we will blanket Franklin with both residential and commercial fiber optics.
I mean, that's
There's
every
no,
street right there.
like,
Yeah.
single provider that we'd have to use.
No,
Like,
this
this
is-
doesn't there's no monopoly.
No, this is Easy Fiber. This is one
Wait,
carrier.
Yeah.
It stops right there at Franklin. That's not the end of Franklin, though, is it?
For.
Much so.
On the bottom of this map?
Yeah, I see.
Well, I
That's like where Franklin turns to go towards Southfield, right?
Evan,
That's
can
at
you go down
like,
a little The map is cut off.
yeah, the map's
Is
cut
there
off.
more?
It goes all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
Front Rock?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It goes all the way down to Rosemont.
Right.
Gotta say, curious how, if you look at Rosemont Drive, because this is part of our,
How it's all the
you and
way
I are
through?
working on.
Yeah,
Pete Halleck claims, still claims that that has actually was a road at one
Right,
point, and
right.
it's funny how they seem to have picked that up, but anyways, I digress. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the end of Bashir Street, but,
unless it's just,
used to be a road.
Yeah.
Pete Halleck says it used to be a public road.
but that said, it could also just be an easement, a utility easement, right?
Right, but it's just funny that.
Yeah,
they picked it
for
up
sure.
as if it was a road.
For sure.
All right, so we don't really have to do anything. We've approved their permit. We wanted this information. Is everybody satisfied? I mean, this seems like an excellent
That's the
opportunity.
permit, approval to go ahead and sign it. I think your name is slated there, President.
We have to make a motion.
Yeah, we didn't have a
Yeah.
choice either, right? We had to, we had to give
We
it
already-
some,
yeah, we-
some conditions, but the choice wasn't really ours,
Correct.
correct?
We already had the motion. We voted on it at the last meeting.
Thank you, Peter.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, we just wanted Peter to get comfortable, so I think we're good. Okay. Another option, I should say, for
Right.
internet. Okay, new business. So, and we have Stuart here. We don't have the benefit of Chris Dusan like you do, so either Rachel or Stuart, you wanna just fill us in generally on the site plan? Do we have a site plan in our pack? I didn't.
Yeah,
It's included in this package.
I think we sent a memo, I don't know if it was included
It's
in,
Chris Dusan's memo, but I don't see a site plan application.
yeah. Actually, that might be, if you don't see, yeah, if you don't see the memo, if you
Yeah, we
don't,
just had his write-up, but that's okay. So just give us generally, what is it that they're doing? This has to do with the old, with the house, with the building on the
right.
property. Okay.
Yeah, so there's an alleyway between the two buildings on the same property, by the, what was normally known as the Franklin Grill, now is, the Oyster Bar. They purchased the property, next to their facility, and were originally had a site plan review to turn it into, to have a purpose of, sandwiches and coffee and some other things. And after further investigating, they realized that they don't have the, they need more prep space. And so they'd like to repurpose it. And so that triggered a site plan review for the Planning Commission to approve the basic change of purpose for the use case for that building into being a food prep and storage. And they're adding a bathroom as well that for that area. After several meetings and as well as back and forth in a public hearing, we've confirmed as a planning commission that we think that the change is acceptable for the planning. There was some concern about how we still would like to have a coffee bar or something like unto it in the village, and as a business owner, business owners in a village, we'd like to encourage them to be successful, and if this will make them stay and be more successful, then that outweighed our desire to keep it as the purpose of a coffee location or a snack location. So that's kind of the 1,000-foot, 2,000, 10,000-foot view of how planning perceives the site plan review. So, but yeah, we support the site plan and make a recommendation to council to accept their site plan review, their site plan from the review.
Yeah, so I'll chime in. I was able to attend, and again, I think the big thing that the residents who are opposed to it had to say was that there's so little commercial space that's available on Franklin Road. However, I think there was as many people in the audience saying that we need to support our business. So personally, I'll just roll my opinions into this comment as well, which is same thing that was reflected by the Planning Commission. We need to support the businesses that come in. So I fully support.
Any questions about, I mean, you don't have the full site plan in front of you, unfortunately, but it's been in the last couple packets, so if you had a chance to look at previously, do you have any questions for me or things that you might think that we didn't investigate far enough of with regards to this?
Thank you, Stuart.
So what is needed of us? We need to approve the site plan?
And the business owner is actually here if you want to ask questions to him directly. So
Sure.
he hung out. I want you to just sit there.
Oh. No, come on. By all means.
I want you to sit there. Sorry.
How are you guys?
Good. All right, so you guys recommended approval. Is there any special land use approval going on? I see the word special approval, but there's no special land use approval in conjunction. This is just a site plan approval for an accessory building that already exists. It's just a change to the interior of the structure for interior renovations. It's already been to the HDC. There's no exterior impact other than a new door, which I'm sure they'll chime in on what material you use. So, I mean, does anybody have questions for the applicant? Otherwise, I mean, I'd entertain a motion to approve the site plan for accessory building, parcel number 2406-226-004.
So move.
President Goldberg, there's just one small caveat there, that Mr. Dusen is recommending that they approve it, but with, the facade being maintained in good condition perpetuity. I think that's a given with the ordinance, but, it does include that.
I mean,
In
isn't that,
perpetuity?
Just maintained in good condition, yeah, it says in perpetuity.
What's the,
What's the
do we
historical?
define facade?
I don't understand why this building would be held to any higher standard of historical appearance in our historic district than anybody else would, just because we're giving them a site plan approval. We site plan approve buildings in the historic district all the time, and have never put any type of mandate on it maintaining some level of appearance. They're bound to keep a level of appearance per ordinance,
It's
yeah.
given in the ordinance, correct.
So, I mean, again, we don't have a motion
You
yet, but
good?
I'm not a big fan of putting any limitation outside of what our ordinance generally requires.
It's within your purview to also modify our recommendation to whatever you feel
Yeah.
is necessary. If you don't feel that there's a concern
Yeah.
that it's already covered, then
Yeah.
there's no need to actually support that.
Oh,
recommendation.
that was what the special approval meant. That's where I got confused. That was the extra thing. So, all right, so if we want, we can just have a motion to approve the site plan and be good at
I
that.
think in general, the Franklin has like brought a huge level of vitality to
Without
the
question.
village. They've donated to local causes. I know, like I just attended an auction the other day. They had donated to West Maple PTA. They have a lot of PR going on. The Birmingham Magazine had a whole photo shoot outside with all the Lions wives, and it was just all shot in Franklin and all saying how, you know, great this village is. And I think like promoting a business is great for the whole community. So I've been really impressed and agree with, you know, the
Oh,
planning
yeah,
commission,
gonna
you know,
welcome
just
it.
what's going on.
We've got another one coming out in January too.
In what magazine?
Scene magazine.
See, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the site plan, as,
For accessory building.
for accessory building.
Second.
All right, motion by Solly, second by Gates. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you again.
you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
We look forward to
Yes.
this next step in the process.
All right, thank you, guys.
Have a good night.
Okay, so, next item on the agenda is community development block grant discussion. It looks like Rachel and the staff have put together a pretty detailed presentation on CDBG. So, historically, each year, we are allocated CDBG money, and then we have, although it's an option of ours to keep it for our own purposes, we have historically always passed that through to varying 501c3 organizations that are affiliated with the village. Last year, we chose the Baseball League. We've given it to Next in the past, Birmingham Youth Assistance, Haven. This year, with the transition in the office, I think we fell a month behind. And as it turns out, we need to give an answer to the county by,
December 5th.
yeah, which is 5 days before our next meeting. Typically, in the past, today would have been the meeting where we would have discussed the subject matter and made the decision and allowed the various organizations that typically ask for the money to have an opportunity to speak. So, this is a presentation which we can have a discussion on, or everybody can take it home with them and review it just for their own edification. I'm gonna probably have to schedule a special meeting between now and our next meeting to accomplish a couple things. We need to address this. If possible, we could use that same meeting to appoint our replacement trustee so that that individual gets an opportunity to get integrated before the December meeting as opposed to doing it right then. So, does anybody want to hear anything on the subject matter right now?
How much advance notice do we have to provide? Like, is there we need to balance, if there is a notice requirement, that we would balance
We
the
have to have a
notice
public
requirement
hearing, Rachel?
against?
There is a notice requirement. Do you remember, you don't know.
10 days, 15 days?
It's in here somewhere.
Have you already received people's requests?
Not really,
No.
because we haven't really put it out there this year. I mean, we know a handful of, I don't want to say handful, I would say one or two people that have already asked the village for money on other matters, not necessarily CDBG. That's something that we're gonna have to discuss, is to what extent are we gonna have CDBG money, as well as to what extent do we have other money in the budget for allocated other places that we could shift to assisting some of our other
I would
community
like
partners.
to announce that today, I opened up our post office fax and we got our notification from the IRS that the FCA has been reinstated into having
That's great to hear.
our 501c3.
That's wonderful.
Congratulations.
Yes, good job. So,
And now we're eligible.
The playground connection. Are we gonna bring that up in infrastructure? 'Cause we
well,
got-
so,
We're recommending like 4,000.
so just a couple items that are out there and things that we need to discuss as a council with regard to things that didn't get into this year's budget that we have considered in the past, and are we gonna consider them for this year? And if it's an issue of yes, we have allocated money in the budget for special projects, which if we had to use that, if we wanted to consider some of these other items, special projects. But just to give everybody a 30-second refresher on where CDBG has evolved over the last few years. So The amount we get has been pretty much so the same, about 7,500 has been about the number we've been getting the last few years, probably based on population or something. If you recall, maybe 5 or so years and prior to that, almost predominantly, there were only 3 organizations that had really been coming in regularly to ask for money. It was Next, which is our senior center that represents the Birmingham community, including Franklin. There was the Birmingham Youth Assistance, which is another organization that assists youth within the community, usually youths that are a little wayward and have found themselves into various types of criminal or civil types of infractions. And then the third was Haven, which was an organization that was dealt with abused and women that were in need of help. It was always an unfortunate thing to have to deal with because there'd be 3 organizations, all of which were very needy, and we only had 7,500 to allocate to one. We had talked about, and in times in the past, had worked at bifurcating it, and the amount when you split it up is so limited, and the extra workload that we were told it put on the staff to do that bifurcation made it not fair. So, or made it not worthy, not worth the money that we were spending on allocating it was more than what we were giving away. So we made a decision about 5 years ago that Next couldn't keep getting this every 3 years. We would give it to Next 1 year, and then Birmingham Youth, and then Haven, and then it would sort of rotate. So our Next representatives were telling us that's not working for Next. They need to have a little more regular financial support from us. So we have regularly, for the last few years, been putting in the budget a $10,000 allocation to Next. When we started, once we made that allocation, Next was still coming in and asking for CBDG. That was when we kind of told them, well, guys, you guys are getting your $10,000, that's your annual stipend. We're not also going to be in a position to give you any more money. So they've sort of, and respectfully, I don't want to say respectfully to them, but the Haven, I think, found themselves getting the short end of the stick a lot, and after a couple years ago, just kind of stopped applying. But when Haven stopped applying, other groups began coming to the forefront. I know the FCA has asked for support for benches and things like that constantly. There's always improvements that could be done to the FCA. So there's always things that the FCA could use money to assist with. And then more recently, the Franklin Baseball League has gotten involved. Then this last year, the preschool, another charitable organization who maintains, from the church's perspective, is the one financially responsible for the playground, they've asked us for money. So, and then so we've got the baseball league and now the playground, but there's also Birmingham Youth Assistance, which 2 years ago, when they had come here to speak with us, and Kurt sits on the board, they're a major part of the particularly the high school community, both Groves and Seaholm are, where a majority of the cases come from. They've been asking us for some regular contribution. And at one point, we had discussed also making the Birmingham Youth Assistance a standardized allocation in our annual budget, like Next was, to eliminate those 2 organizations from having to require coming to us and getting an occasional CDBG grant to being a regular part of our budgeting. This last year, that I believe Rachel and Teresa will confirm, but I believe only the Next allocation found its way in the budget, nothing allocated to Birmingham Youth Assistance.
And we
So,
gave it to Franklin Baseball last year.
and we gave to the Franklin Baseball League last year. So, in the course of the next couple weeks, as we have to come up with a decision, we have to decide on a couple things, which is, one, what are we considering for this year's allocation? Let's assume now that the FCA has regained their charitable stature, that we'll have at least 3 organizations, the Baseball League, the FCA, and the
Assistance?
Do they have to apply in order to
well, the
receive funds?
Birmingham
Sorry,
Youth
the church.
Assistance
Yeah, you're
and the
saying
church.
3 from the
Right,
from
3
our-
notwithstanding
Yeah,
Birmingham Youth Assistance. So,
Do they have to apply for the funds in order to receive them?
technically, not really. We could allocate it without someone asking. I don't think we've ever historically
Yeah, right.
given someone money who didn't take the time to ask over somebody who took the time to ask. We've even been using when there's no real factor to determine one over the other. If you didn't bother to send somebody here for the meeting, that, you know, maybe it wasn't worth enough for you to figure out. So, I don't love that as being a determining factor. But what we need to consider is, one, does Birmingham Youth Assistance need to, in some factor, become a regular part of the budget? Or do they have to just ask for it on an annual basis? Does Next continue to have its standard allocation in the budget? And then what are we gonna do with our CDBG money? And to the extent that we're not giving it to one of our other community partners, to what extent are we gonna consider allocating money in our budget to still assist them outside of money that we get for free? The church, in numerous capacities, are huge partners of the village. I think we've already all agreed that their playground serves the entire village, including the entire baseball league, because for every parent, I want to say every, but for a majority of parents that go to a game to watch their kid play, they have 2 other kids that they brought to the game that aren't watching the game, that are playing on the swing set. So, we have to be cognizant of the preschool and the church's playground and the church's baseball field. And then, on top of that, historically, the church and the village have had a contract regarding the parking lot. That contract expired in 2019, under which we were giving them money on a regular basis to maintain the parking lot as well as do regular fix-ups. That contract has not been in place for 6 years now, and we have not been contributing to the church. Kathy might know, but I thought that the same agreement that we had with the church, the FCA and the Little League at some time had the same, their license agreements. The license was, you give us some money to contribute towards maintenance, we let you park in our parking lot, whatever.
And it also changed into a donation.
Right.
Many years ago.
Right, so now we're not contributing anything to them. I think I mentioned it at the last meeting, we got a letter from the church saying, hey, thanks for the $4,000 that you guys contributed, although I don't recall, I don't think we ever approved it. I think our prior administrator might have made that promise, which is okay, but clearly that group is also in the need of some level of financial support, or do we go back to some type of arrangement with them? Because in theory, they could any day say, stop using our parking lot, all of you. And that would be, as we know, catastrophic to the village. So
Also bad optics. Would they ever do that?
would they do that? No. But
And that's the same thing for the preschool, like, they're not gonna.
there's equally bad optics if we continue to ignore their needs and we continue to use their property unfettered. And I'm still probably pretty sure that overall, there's probably more residents and preschool parents and others using the parking lot than just their parishioners that come 1 or 2 days.
So park up just today for this meeting.
And the same thing with the playground, like, they're not gonna put a fence around it, but their preschoolers are only in 2 hours a day during September to May, and they're 10,
Right,
2-year-olds,
so-
but they're not using the majority of the time.
I guess the bottom line is, we can't just rely moving forward on CDBG money as the only way to contribute to our involvement with all of our community partners. So even though CDBG might be one free means of helping a particular organization in any given year, that doesn't mean that during that same given year, we don't have these other organizations that need to be in consideration. And I'm not asking for an answer today, but something to think about when we come back here in a special meeting in 2 or 3 weeks and have to make a decision, and Evan will send out, Evan and Rachel will send out notices to our typical partners that have been here in the past, and we have to suffer through that painstaking, because you want to give them all money, and you can't. So be prepared for, that's what's coming down the pipe again.
One of the discussions that the infrastructure committee had was like, and aligns with the new procurement policy, was not making contributions to charitable organizations, but paying for something. So like paying for the mulch or paying for the resurfacing. So you're not actually contributing, but you're like, and you have control over what they're spending it on. So you're not just giving $5,000 to the church or $4,000 to the preschool, but you're paying for $3,600 for mulch and sand. So that way it goes towards that, and it's not being stockpiled. We felt more comfortable with.
Agreed, and to the extent that we are giving an organization money, most organizations, as well as the grantor themselves, can specifically allocate where that's going to. I don't know if CDBG money, once we give it to an organization, we can control what happens to it once it touches their books. But yes, absolutely, we need to consider that exact situation, is what type of arrangement do we need to have with the, excuse me, with the preschool on a regular basis? Do we have an ongoing relationship with the baseball league, and then, an ongoing relationship with the FCA?
A couple questions for Rachel, if you know them. If not, we can follow up after. But if we, as the village, took the CDBG funds to pay for something, would we still have to post public notice for a hearing, or is that if we're only looking to take the third party?
Yes, we need to post the public notice. It's a 10-day notice before the date of the hearing.
Okay.
And we do need to post that. We've held a public hearing and have decided to keep the funds for ourselves.
Okay. Then the second question is if we award it to an organization, do they have to have like a proposal that has some specific thing, or can it just be for, like, I'll use the example of Birmingham Youth Assistance, rather than saying directly for mulch, just general operation of services?
I will verify
Okay,
that.
that's
with
totally
OpenAI.
fine. Yeah, totally fine. Thank you.
Based on what we've done with Next and Birmingham Youth Assistance in the past, we've never put any specific use towards it.
Yeah,
I
the
don't
only
think that's
reason
ever-
that I'm bringing that up is, granted, I was looking at, I formerly worked at HUD, and when I did, we would have to do reviews of like, almost audits of the projects that were being funded on it. Now, that is a completely separate thing where you would actually be coming with a proposal to receive funding compared to just allocation based off of a local municipality. But just, that's kind of what spurred the question.
They definitely should get the answer,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
don't believe historically that that's been an issue. Now, have we ever always followed the rules?
Right.
Who knows? Okay, so, I'll reach out to everyone kind of separately, just kind of get a straw poll on when everybody's schedule works, whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. We gotta have 10 days notice no matter what. Maybe I'll Rachel, you and Evan can maybe reach out to the couple organizations, Baseball League, see if there's a particular day that works. What have we usually, we don't do, we have not gone back to Mondays, have we, on our special meetings? Does any day work better for people?
Just mindful of the holiday,
Yeah, I was gonna
Thanksgiving
say,
coming up.
maybe not 2 weeks from now.
Oh, God,
That's
yeah, I forgot about
Thanksgiving
that.
holiday,
Right.
unless you want my whole family
Last-
to show up here.
I think that it was during a regular council meeting that we heard from the CDBG.
It's not possible.
Oh, I know, I'm just saying last time
Right.
it was during a regular council.
So, hold on, let me just look at the calendar for the month. So today's the
So
10th,
the next week is the week of the 17th, the week of the 24th is
27th is Thanksgiving.
Yep, so, I mean, the week of the 1st,
Right,
the
so we have to have the answer by the 5th. Our next meeting is on the 8th. So, yeah, we could first, second, or third of December, maybe with that Wednesday.
The 3rd. Yeah, we're out of town for Thanksgiving.
You guys are?
For the 3rd?
No, we're back, the 2nd.
Right, that's why, right, Wednesday's the middle of the week. All right, we'll tentatively look for about the 3rd. Do a special meeting and cover CDBG.
I'm gonna be out of town.
You gonna be out of town?
Yep, Grand Rapids.
All
Or
right,
in the 4th,
and the 4th.
probably
All right.
the night of the 2nd through the 4th.
Okay. And you guys are out of town too.
We leave the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
If we,
And we need 10 days' notice no matter what, so even if we did something today, we couldn't even do it before the 20th. Okay.
24th.
yeah.
It might be the day. Because that gives them all week to get the notice together, get it out on the 13th for a meeting on the 24th.
This is a single agenda, like, yeah.
Correct. Okay. Uh, So the discussion regarding nuisance abatement. At this stage, really all that we were looking at, so, Planning Commission gave us a chart. The chart circulated for a little bit. I know Dan did some homework and had it updated a little bit. Chris circulated a new memo from September, which with the addition of these red items was for the most part the same. That chart right there, leave that right there for a second. So Stuart, Planning Commission. You identified all these as areas that either we cover or other communities cover. And we as a council, and what we're gonna get submitted to Evan, hopefully with all of us separately within the next week or so, is at this stage, it's really more of a yay or nay for us. One, inoperable junk or abandoned motor vehicles. Explanation of what it's designed to cover. It tells us whether we currently cover it. That next column, which is blank, what every one of us needs to get to Evan is for one, and at this stage, it isn't, it's just very more generic yes or no, is yes, I think this is an area we should continue to have ordinance that cover, not getting into the details of how it's covered, but just yes, we should continue to do it, or no, we don't need to cover this anymore, and in the areas where we don't cover it, are these areas where we want to begin covering it. Once we've identified the subjects that we want to address, then we can do deeper dives into each one of them and determine, do we already have an ordinance section? If we do, is our ordinance section sufficient? If it isn't sufficient, does it need to be amended? Or, in the alternative, if we don't cover it at all, do we need to, and we want to cover it, we're going to have to write language to cover it. And then the last item is, we might have to defer to how they do it in other communities, but it seems like ours is scattered all to the wind.
Yes.
And do other
Consolidation.
communities bottle the edges and bring them into one or two ordinances that cover all of these subjects?
Right, a member of the community could go to our ordinance sheet and say, what are the nuisances we have to look up for, rather than read through the fence ordinance or read through the vehicle ordinance or anything, and then have to then cipher out what is considered an inoperable or abandoned vehicle, or something like that,
So
right?
you guys would recommend,
We would recommend consolidating nuisance,
for
yes.
sure.
But I think one of the things that I'd like in this discussion that council has is to discuss also enforcement of what is already an ordinance in the village. The challenges that we run into sometimes are just, they're not being enforced. And so if we have a ordinance that covers inoperable junk or abandoned motor vehicles, and that's happening in the village, is that happening in the village, and are we not enforcing it? But then at the same time, there's a hole with recreational vehicles. They're not included in that same ordinance. And so in that case, then there's no strength for enforcement, because there's nothing to enforce.
I think that's something that we've talked about, and we've talked with Don about. We're primarily a complaint-driven ordinance village. So if your neighbor
Yep.
complains about it, you'll get a zit, and if your neighbor is good with it, you won't. But to me, that isn't fair, because it puts a lot of power in a neighbor that you may not want to give them to, and we should just have more.
Rachel and Kurt will attest that within the last year, Don has evolved from that, from being entirely
Complaint driven,
complaint driven. And a lot of that was based upon the amount of hours that he had to work. So when he's only here for X number of hours a month, he had to focus on the complaints. Whereas now that we've upped the budget to allow him more time here, he's less working on actual complaints, which then opens up the time for him to go around. And again, he's limited to things he can see from his vehicle without trespassing onto someone's property and things like that in order to see.
What's the change in balance of complaint-driven incidents or issues that he's uncovered versus proactive enforcement? Do we have any idea?
His allocation of time, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if we have issues in the village, what percentage of those are based on resident complaints versus what percentage of issues that he might uncover through
We could
proactive
could
enforcement?
definitely get him to kind of take a snapshot of a week or two and determine how many hours in his day are spent reacting to an actual complaint versus.
So I do know that he uses Community Connect on all the things that he enforces. A lot of times what he does is he will, if he sees a violation, he'll send out a letter and try to get them to voluntarily take care of the issue before writing a citation. And before he writes a citation, he usually either checks with myself or with the administrator. But he does go out and patrol. He does go out and look for signs and different violations. So I know he does that. What the percentages are between complaints and found on patrol, I'd have to look in Community Connect or talk to Don.
This one's for Stuart. When you all were coming up with what we currently have in the section, I know there's some commentary around like the objectivity of enforcement, but was that driven through him or through McKenna making an assessment that there's?
No, it's actually it's from Don and from Bill. Denon, because both have had to think about the ordinances that we write and enforce them, whether it's building or whether it's, in this case, nuisance and abatement. They want to make sure it's clear enough for them to be able to tell a homeowner, yes, and this is a clear-cut, dry nuisance, but also it'd be nice for them to be able to say, however, this is also acceptable if you do this, because having it clear for them to be able to give the homeowner an out is probably a kinder way of approaching nuisance than it is just saying, no, you've done something wrong, fix it. Yeah. So that's partly why we want them to be involved in any changes that we make for the ordinance, to make sure it's clear for them. The other thing, though, I believe that if you were to do a poll of complaint-driven versus observation by dawn, they're probably all during the day, because a lot of the challenges that we've seen lately have to do with light between neighbors' yards and backyards and side yards, and you might not be able to actually measure the light trespass between neighbors because he's either not working in the evening, or if he is, then he's only targeting complaint-driven homes. So.
I don't know what the expectation is for next steps, but I'll advocate on behalf of the planning commission that we not send it back to them yet. And instead what we do is we pull together the matrices so that we can see collectively how we compare in our thoughts and start to narrow and refine what's in, what's out, and then get them a final.
I agree. So I would ask that, just to give staff a couple weeks before the next meeting. Today's the 10th, so let's just say by Thanksgiving. So that's 2 weeks from today. Let's just take your list, and again, yay or nay. I mean, you can say, yes, needs to be updated, yes, needs more teeth, but definitely yes or no, at least in there, so that we can straw poll, are we looking at 25 items, or are we looking at, 15 items?
Right. Yeah.
And this, good job. Look, ordinance enforcement's always been an issue here in the village. It's not Birmingham where you can see a lot from the street and you don't have forests blocking people's backyards. Unfortunately, the law doesn't allow our code enforcement people to just fly everywhere, or walk anywhere they want. We haven't invested in drones, but not sure we're quite ready to go there yet, although I do know communities using that as a means of enforcement. But, it's always been an issue. My neighbor put a shed in, never pulled a permit, put the shed in the side yard.
What are you gonna do? Well, no, and that's my biggest thing.
That's
It's
the
like
issue,
you just
like-
want to save face with your neighbors, so you just don't say anything because you're like, at the end of the day, my relationship with my neighbor is more important than the shed.
Correct, and then unfortunately, when the neighbors don't care, that's the only ones that we hear about.
So I think there are, I've run into this as well with my neighbors. When they re-landscaped their yard, the neighbor across the street had bright lights shining in their kitchen window at night. And it could have gone the route of, you're in violation of our ordinance, clear violation, and just reported them. Or we said, hey, by the way, the people that installed your lighting angled it too high up, it's now shining in, and there was several hundred feet between the houses, so it was a pretty big distance. It was able to brighten their kitchen, and all they did was just turn it down, and the neighbors are not upset with each other anymore, and it was just a matter of communication. But that would be the ideal situation.
That's the ideal way, and I think that's the way Don starts on all of these, is to approach it from a more practical way. But when that practicality gets lost by emotion, that's when, unfortunately, the village gets stuck in the middle.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So, yeah, thank you.
And regardless, I think after you're done with your work, I think then we'll kick off the exercise of co-locating all of the nuisance ordinances in the same section or within the same ordinance. So even if you don't want us to rewrite a specific ordinance, or touch it other than just to relocate it to to the section of nuisance abatement, then that'll be, I believe, an action that we can take after this as well. So that'll be the next step after we get feedback from council on what to do. So that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks, Stuart. So, before we go to reports, David, you had asked to pull purchasing policy out.
Yeah.
So, to the extent that we have discussion, let's have discussion questions. If it's more syntactical or things like that, I would say,
Just send it.
what we've done in the
Right,
past, send
yeah.
it to Rachel, let her review it, incorporate it, contact whoever sent it to her with questions, and then let's bring it back for, bring it back for approval? Yeah.
Unless there's something that's driving
Well, that's my
urgency.
question. That was, I was just gonna say.
Well, I did tackle this immediately because I really do want to start delving into our contracts. I've heard a lot of people talking about them, and I really want to start reading them and figuring out what's going on with them. And I feel like without having this in place, I can't bring you anything because we don't have this specific
Standard.
policy that.
I reviewed it. Do you think there's anything that's
No.
subject matter driven?
No,
Like,
so
could we approve this today and then revisit it next month? And if
That's
we
what I was
wanna-
gonna say, is
if we
approve
want-
it, and then we can, I can provide my discussions. I don't think there's anything material, I'll just say it right now.
Yeah.
The two
Yeah, we
things,
can.
is one in the intro, I think having something in conclusion, and again, this is a non-material change, which is why it, if it's going to inhibit you administrating, then I can cut it. But I was just having, language to the effect of like, any requirements or authority set out by this policy shall be interpreted consistent with, so as not to conflict with, the chapter and ordinances of the village, right? And it's just when we're putting out written documentation, just having a clarifier. Like, the reason it's non-material is because that's true anyways. It just stops villagers from becoming confused between what the chain of authority is, right? So like, the ordinances have a provision that say that can't conflict or override the authority of the charter, right? And so it just creates the layers, but it's non-material, so it's certainly not anything that I would hold it up on. The other consideration that I feel comfortable moving forward with, but I think would be helpful, would be for emergency purchases, having a definition around emergency purchase, so that you're establishing a threshold for when that provision would trigger.
Okay, so let's do emergency purchases first, because I feel like that's a little bit easier.
Cool.
If we can, is that okay with you?
Absolutely. No.
I feel
Except we-
like maybe we can get through this real quick
If we
tonight.
can, then that would be great. Because I
So-
want it approved one way or another, whether it's
Yeah,
conditionally or not. I want you to be able to be operating with this for the next month.
So emergency purchases under I, which is the first paragraph, is specifically emergency purchases that are related to the Oakland County Emergency Operations Plan. And that is the,
Okay.
that is a.
Yeah, then that resolves that.
But number two, public health, safety, or welfare threats.
Okay.
Like a power outage or a snowstorm or something like that.
Yes, and, I mean, we can discuss whether or not this needs to be defined further. I don't know how I would. I don't know if Peter has anything that he can add to this, but it is for emergency or disaster situations. So, that do not fall under the Oakland County Emergency Operations Plan. So, I guess I could create.
Is it like acts of God?
We could add a qualifier that's like reasonable emergency expenses that require 48-hour decision making or something like that. Like if we don't have a contract for snow removal and there's been like a snowstorm, you, without convening the council, have to approve a snow company to come in. Or if our snow companies, trucks are out of service, something you may have to contract with a snow company immediately within 48 hours. You know what I mean? Something like that. We could put
That
a
makes
time-bound, some language that's time-bound on there, right, Peter?
Yeah, I think you can do acts of God and inhibits the ability of the village to act in the ordinary course.
Yeah, ordinary course of business. I was thinking that same thing.
And as soon as possible, notify the council or something like that.
That's already in there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, act of God and something that impedes the village to
Ability.
act in the village's ability.
Yeah, in the ordinary course.
The ability to act in the ordinary course.
Okay, and then let's go back to your first comment, if you will. Are you talking about under the policy
Well,
objectives, just adding a statement that says nothing in this policy shall?
So it wasn't in the policy objective, sorry. The place that it felt like a more natural reading was in application. Essentially, it would become a last sentence to application.
So,
which is 21A.
Okay. Okay, so we could just change the second from last sentence to say, nothing in this policy shall prevent the village or any public agency from complying with the terms and conditions of any grant, gift, or bequest that is otherwise consistent with the law, nor shall it prevent the village from complying with the village's charter.
This is under application. Nothing in this policy should prevent the village or any public agency.
I'm gonna let the lawyers take this one. Take that seat.
So we could also put an authority section at the very top before application, because everything in this policy is restricted by the charter. So you can say restricted by the charter, chapter 2, section 2, subsection 1, 2, section 3, and then there's an entire part of the charter that lays out procurement, and that's where the authority comes from, which normally that's how you start policy, by the authority.
So then, if we were to do just under that, it would be general, authority.
Yeah.
The authority, capture that last sentence regarding the ultimate responsibility shall be under the administrator, and then the language
Yeah.
such as, again, any requirements or authority set out in this policy
Mhm.
shall be interpreted consistent with, so as not to conflict with, the chapter and ordinances of the village.
Prefer, like, chapter 2 set out some procurement, and then chapter 8 is specific to contracts.
Or are you saying,
Like, chapter 8 of the charter governs contracts, so
Sure.
this entire thing has to be subjected to that.
as well as, I mean, that's what I'm saying though, is that our chain of command goes charter, ordinance, policy.
Yeah, but there's no authority in this policy, and
What do you
normally when you, like, where does the authority come from for Rachel to even write the policy? That should be at the top.
Oh,
Like, that's just how you write policy.
yeah, I mean, the only thing is we kind of need to get this out today.
Inherent in this, that charter and ordinances have to be complied with, like you said, there's a pecking order.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, the references in here do say in accordance with law.
right.
I mean, the charter is law, the ordinances are law.
Yeah, and again, my qualifier was this is a non-material change, so I don't want this to become a focal point.
No, and the comment is, that's why I think that we can
Approve and then come back to it.
approve this, subject to providing Rachel and Peter with non-material comments.
Yeah.
And then I'll let Peter and Rachel determine whether any comment that any of us gives them elevates to material. If it's material, then don't incorporate it into the policy until we come back next December to ratify it. If it's immaterial, then add the language and continue to operate this month on that basis.
Yeah. I
If somebody
agree with that.
reads through this and is like, whoa, and something
Yep.
jumps off the page, then, and you read that and you're like, oh, yeah, that is a little messed up, then just don't follow that one particular thing until December, but in the meantime,
Okay, I do just have some material things, but it mostly has to do with periods of performance. So there's nothing in here that says what the period of performance should be for a contract. You know, so normally, like, you would do a 12-month contract, 4 option years, not to exceed 60 months, and then we'd have to exercise the option year. But there's nothing in here, so, like, what are we gonna say is a period of performance that council is comfortable with, or like when you're reviewing the contracts, you know, you can't just have a 3-year period of performance without annual review, or are we saying that's okay? You know, or it can be reviewed, like, normally the federal government you're gonna do a 12-month period of performance for option years not to exceed 60 months, because the idea is that after that, you need to reperform market research. Fair market value has changed so much, but there's nothing in here to talk about like rebidding, or valid periods of performance. So that's, but from your background, I'm fine with like what you think should be good.
Well, it really depends on what the contract is for. So let's say it's a contract for legal services. I debated this in my mind and left it out because we don't necessarily follow a 3-year budget right now. Our budget is approved on a yearly basis without looking out into the future so much. So oftentimes when contracts have dates like that, it's based on the budget of the community. So I would ask Peter, or I would say in my RFP, we're looking for a contract for the next 3 years.
Okay.
And all of that would be governed within whatever was decided in the RFP.
That's good.
So do we have any contracts with anybody that exceed our fiscal budget year, with the exception of our legal consultant, our planning consultant, our engineering consultant, and our public services contractor? Do we have any?
Do we exercise contracts every year?
Those are all contract specific, like this flock, I'd have to look at it again, but I think for
3
3
years.
years, right? So it's all depending on the services. With our fire department, I think it's 3 or 4 years.
The fire department is from the 2022 to 2027.
Yeah, okay, 5 years.
But so normally you wouldn't be able to obligate funds beyond, like to your point, a budget year. So we really shouldn't be having contracts that exceed 12 months if every year we're approving a budget, because if we didn't approve that amount in the budget, we'd be obligating and we'd be against a deficiency act.
But most of our contracts are based upon us requesting the services. They don't just, with the exception of waste management and Jerry cutting lawns and plowing streets, all of our services are based on, and then if somebody has to initiate.
You could do an addendum to this. You could do a purchasing and procurement policy, and then you could always do an addendum to this policy. And like, as you go through the contract review, you can be like, oh, I want to add this, I want to add that.
We could do that.
Sorry, I write policies, so this is like, yeah, that was just something that jumped out at me.
I am concerned about approving a legal contract or an engineering contract or a planning contract for 1 year at a time, because that means we have to go through the RFP process every single year.
Not if you have option years. You can just exercise the option. And that's another thing in here. We could give you the authority to exercise an option above your warrant authority without even coming to council. And that was another thing I wanted to give you. If you've done the RFP and you've gotten approved, you could just exercise the option year by
Yeah,
yourself.
that works.
Yeah.
And yeah, so how do you want to handle that in the policy? Is that something that we need to address in the policy, or every contract will come to the board for approval?
The first time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not every contract. So contracts under $10,000 do not need to come to the board. So.
Yeah, so that was another thing I wanted to know. Can we have notice of spending, even if you, just like, because what happened the other day was we got a letter, thank you for giving us $4,000 for the parking lot, but we didn't know about it. So then we were gonna give them another $4,000. So just, can we have some sort of notification?
So I did cover that in this policy, and it is under, give me 1 second here. After RFPs. It is number 4. So it's on number 4 on page 7. And it's the authorization for non-standard use of village funds. So I would consider me telling the church, you can have $4,000 for paving. That's an authorized non-standard use.
Okay.
Legal contracts, that's a standard use. Painting, a village hall, that's standard.
Okay.
But what I've added in here is that these expenditures shall require prior approval by the village council.
You could add something, then just, why don't we just say option years can be exercised by the administrator when the base contract has been approved by council, not to exceed 3 option years, right? Or 4 option years. Are you guys good with that? Or if she has to come back every year, or we allow for contracts that go beyond a 12-month period of performance.
I don't have a problem with options. I don't have a problem with her entering into contracts if it's within an approved budgeted line item.
What, I mean, we'd have to decide what we want.
Or an approved percentage increase, like if those contracts increase over.
Usually when they give you an option year, the vendor's gonna already add in the percent. So they'll like option year 1, the base contract will be, and then it'll be like 4% every year.
So we'll have seen the original contract that
Plus-
has all the options, so as
Yeah.
long as she's operating within the confines of the contract, once we approve the contract, it's good. Some of the contracts might not have bumps, some might have bumps, some, yeah.
And
Depends
then
on the
we can
vendor.
say not to exceed 60 months, and then you'd have to rebid it.
Yeah, I don't think we should be entering into any contracts beyond that type of time.
But there's nothing in the policy right now, so we could put that. Right?
Do you remember the language you said?
Yeah,
And you
The
said-
administrator has the authority to exercise option years,
Under previously approved,
so long as the base
yeah,
contract
under previously approved contracts.
was approved by council.
Okay.
Not to exceed a total of 60 months, which is 5 years. So that means the base plus 4 option years, which usually is built out, don't you?
Yeah, I'm just, do we want to put so long as village council does not object?
So then I would have to bring the council, the contract to council.
Yes.
Or they would say, well, we want to take a look at it and we object to it. So they still have the authority as opposed to you saying, I don't need to bring it to the village council, you guys already approved it. Does that make sense?
She would still
Now
have,
I'm confused.
she
So-
would still have to bring it, so that we would have the opportunity to object, which then creates a burden for her, right?
Well, I think you're giving her the authority to go out and enter into those successive year contracts.
Yeah, because we already approved the base.
Yes,
plus
unless you guys say,
options.
you know what, I want to look at it again this year. Let's take a look at it. And she could say, no,
But
because
I
here's my
would-
policy.
I think there was already something in the policy that said council could review contracts or something.
Council reviews.
And this is only
contracts.
things that exceed the 10K.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So we already would have the authority to
I think so.
relook at it. I think, that's how I read it. We'd have the authority to look any contract above 10K, but she has the authority to exercise the option year, if we've already approved it.
Could I make a suggestion? Because this is relatively complex. That this would be one of the things, as you suggested, David, where we approve it and then that allows you to continue to operate, because I don't think in the next month we'll run into anything where we're exercising an option. That way, the 3 of you can connect on language that you're comfortable with, because I don't want to just kind of draw what that provision will look like.
What we could do is work on all of these revisions and then bring it to the special meeting that we're gonna do for CDBG anyway.
I mean, I certainly don't mind addressing it at that meeting, if you need something in place between now and then.
I think I'm okay. It's gonna take me a while to go through everything and figure out how I'm going to address all of these. I mean, I can start writing an RFP without having this done.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, we're only talking a couple of
Yeah,
weeks,
right,
so it'll be okay.
okay.
All I'm saying is I don't want you to bring contracts to us every year.
Yeah. I really don't wanna do that either,
Right.
because
No.
I really have to.
Our contractors don't want
You don't wanna face
to
these
have to be
fires?
on.
It's
up
not
for
bad.
Reconsideration annually.
And you usually get the benefit of a vendor pricing out their costs
Yeah.
in a 60-month, timeframe. So like we're paying they're hedging risk and we're
Yeah.
committed
It
to it.
helps us with our budgeting practices,
Yeah.
to know what we're looking at 3 years in advance,
Mhm.
rather than doing it every single year and just waiting to see what they come up with. Plus, it saves me a bunch of time on the whole RFP process.
Yeah, and that's why I want to give you that authority, because if the contract's over 10K, you could exercise an option year.
Good?
I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Council reports. So we're getting late. I actually don't really have anything to report. My comments were, I already addressed in the CDBG part about having our mind set on some of these other entities that are looking for support. So I don't have anything else to add for, under my report. So council report, we'll start with you, Angelina.
I just wanted to say, recognize that tomorrow's Veterans Day.
Yep.
And thank you to all the families and the spouses and the veterans who've served and who continue to serve and protect our freedom. This is National Kindness Week, so do something kind for a stranger. And then to the new administration and the village staff, like the accountability, the professionalism, the thoroughness, the packets, the outreach has been great. I love the digital copies. I feel like we're saving trees. And appreciate your interaction with us.
Thank you.
For me, just a real quick note, one of the things that we may need to consider in the future, just with all the conversations, while I do believe that people are passionate about the deer population and the potential danger on the roads, I think a lot of the angst is probably the destroying of landscape and vegetation. So I think we need to revisit our fencing requirements or what alternatives we have to help prevent that, to reduce some of the noise. So that's it from me.
I can't agree more that the village of Franklin is not suffering from DVCs. We have, first of all of the roads that surround us aren't our roads, that are the major thoroughfares. I almost never see a dead deer on Franklin Road. It's 13 Mile Road is probably the one area where we suffer from that. And no, it is our residents' concern with their vegetation. And I've been saying this for a while. I mean, I would have no problem moving heights of fences in rear yards from 4 feet to 6 feet. We don't live in a bedroom community where you meet your neighbor at the fence and chit chat over the fence. 2 more feet is a huge.
Is that what a bedroom community is?
I just mean, this like you see, I don't even know what that means, but like, you and your neighbor back in watching movies in, the 50s where, you'd be out in the backyard and your neighbors would meet. All right, well, that's awesome. So if it's 6 feet tall and you're talking with them, you're not,
Right.
yeah, so
No,
I think that would go a long way. We've already done it to address
Yep.
the gardens.
Yep.
But those are still limited in size, and that's really for real specific vegetation that gets destroyed that you can eat. The kind that we're really talking about is the kind that we like to look at and maintain, and when you can't look at it and maintain it anymore, that's where the frustration arises.
Right.
So I don't disagree that might be other means that are more practical to address the situation. I need to get a whole lot more educated on it, because it seems to me if one deer goes here, he's gonna get replaced by another deer.
The only
behind
other
him.
item, as a follow-up related to the deer is, every year we allocate all of our grant funds in a specific area to the mosquito cakes for stagnant water. I'm wondering if we could equally or just allocate that towards deer repellent that we make available. Granted, I don't know we'd want to store it inside of the building because that stuff smells, but at the same time, again, if that's one of the availabilities, I don't know if it is.
Yeah, I don't know
Do
how
we
much.
buy mosquito cakes?
No, we get a grant and you have to allocate it towards certain requirements, and so we allocate it towards the mosquito cakes every year.
Oh, yeah. And people could pick up like a deer repellent spray
Right.
bottle.
Now, if that has the impact that the mosquitoes do from an overall health perspective.
Yeah, and I don't know.
If there's any way to get ourselves out of the crosshairs of the deer conversation about it's the first I'm hearing of it, is there data available, is there, this is the first I'm hearing of it. Are there any widely available studies or information we could put on our website to say, like,
Evan has been.
Evan?
Yeah, I think that DNR link was available.
'Cause,
The ladies that were here today, if they wanted to email the presentation to Evan, Evan can put that link on the website. You can create what's our new terminology? Urban deer
I
management?
think there is an Oakland County something, because there is like some sort of Oakland County community going on.
And Brian Farmer's given me a couple links. Again, I don't know if they're biased towards any particular aspect of urban management, but yeah, I think we probably could create a little section on the website and just have links available for people.
I could just see this taking on a life of its own. I mean, it already has in past meetings, like,
Yeah.
it has been a topic that has taken on more and more traction, and if it's a matter of giving educational materials as a way to say, we are taking this seriously, and here are some things that you can read up on, easy, low-lift way. Also, Rachel, this is your first meeting. It is. So can we take a moment to recognize
Yes, I
that?
didn't even think about that.
End the gauntlet.
Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't even think about that. That's right. Yes.
I'm
It is nice to have you here.
Thank you.
It's been very good.
It only took us nearly, how many hours? What are we on? Math isn't my thing.
3.5.
Yeah, so 3.5 hours, and to recognize it being your first meeting here.
All right.
It's been a nice meeting. Anything from you, Dan?
I think we've had enough for tonight.
Yeah. Stuart, I don't know if there's anything specific. All right, good. Thank you.
Don't you dare
I think Mark bailed on us probably 2 hours ago. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second. Or,
I'll move
so
to
moved.
adjourn. I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Goldberg, second by Solly. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.